9th, 2023, and it is 10:03 a.m. as we begin today. And Member Olson, who is here in the building but held up for a minute, is scheduled to lead the pledge, so I will step in for him. I won't replace him because we can't do that, but I will step in to fulfill that piece. So if you'd join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. That's one of the things that schools take care of. You know, we learn the Pledge of Allegiance. We learn how to stand in a queue for the drinking fountain, raise our hand to speak, know that there are consequences for actions, all the things that schools teach that help our democracy, our democratic republic be better than it is. Because without those, we would have be chaotic. If you've ever been to a place that hasn't learned some of those kinds of things, you see a difference. Yeah. So it's all the things that we learn that we sometimes don't get credit for that happen through schools. All right. I don't know if there's any public comment today. Did anyone sign up for comment? Oh, thanks, Ms. Stephenson. Look for us. I don't suspect so. At least there wasn't as I came in. No? All right. So we have no public comment today, but we're lucky to have Member Spiker, who has agreed to share a thought as we begin today.
Remind me, I don't need to, it's on.
It's
okay,
on.
There we go. Thank you for asking me to do this. And I decided to read from actually, and I brought this because I wanted folks to actually see this. This is a Ziploc bag that I carried with me for many years when I was an Outward Bound instructor. So 30 years ago, I spent many years of my life probably outside in the woods more than I spent in my house, leading teenagers through the woods on expeditions. And these are my quote books that I used when I was out on the trail. And just with everything going on in the world, I've been really thinking about just ways that I have connected with people in my life and have had meaningful experiences. And so those were often times where, when you're out in the woods, really, if you know you're out in the woods with the people, you get to know them very quickly. So I wanted to share a reading from one of my books. And it's titled, Each Second We Live. Each second we live in a new and unique moment of the universe, a moment that never was before and will never be again. And what do we teach our children in school? We teach them that 2 and 2 make 4, and that Paris is the capital of France. When will we also teach them who they are and what they are? We should say to each of them, do you know that you are a marvel? You are unique. In all the world, there is no other child exactly like you. In the millions of years that have passed, there has never been another child who has looked like you, had your body. What a wonder it is. Your legs, your arms, your cunning fingers, the way you move. You may become a Shakespeare, a Michelangelo, a Beethoven. You have the capacity for anything. Yes, you are a marvel. And when you grow up, you can harm another who is, like you, a marvel? You must cherish one another. You must work. We must all work to make this world worthy of its children. And this is from a book titled Joys and Sorrows, Reflections by Pablo Casals, as told by Albert E. Kahn. So I just hope, and I think I've said this before, that we as adults are worthy of our children. So that's why I think I'm drawn to this work, and I'm just so inspired by working with all of you. Thank you, and welcome.
Member Spiker, thank you so much. Yeah, it helps us to think of the responsibility we have for all those children. Whether we see them here today or not, we know they're affected by the work that we do or daily in things that interactions we have. So thank you so much. And I thought, I would love to go on a hike in the woods with Member Spiker. I would go any day. She said, "Hey, I'm going." I
I bring
would
fun
go-
snacks.
I
too.
would love
Yeah.
that, and the snacks too. So great. And I just jumped in. I didn't say today to welcome to AAG Olson with us. That member Carrie, who's liaison from the State Board of Education. So they're both so good to be here in our meetings. And I just jumped in, moved forward, and didn't even say, we have an executive director. And so welcome to Dr. Paul Kramer. And we're so happy to have him here. And he'll have some chance to speak to you in a few minutes. But we are really delighted to have you here.
So good to be here.
So,
Yeah.
and he has, I kind of forgot because a little bit, he has already just jumped in and gone. I mean, from the second he walked in, he was going full speed. And so he's just continued. And it seems like he's been with us for a while. And it has been a very short time, but we're lucky that it will be a while, that we are lucky to have him here. In my report, thanks to, I think, Ms. Stephenson, who also we should acknowledge is Associate Executive Director as well for the State Charter School Board, that we should recognize that. And I think between these two directors that I have some nice notes, and I'm going to read it a little bit so I don't mess up all the parts, but thank you for supplying something so I could honor one of our schools. But Wasatch Waldorf has officially become a member of the Alliance of Public Waldorf Education, which takes some doing to do that. And the awarding team was very impressed by their visit to the school and stated this: the overall mood, commitment to our Alliance principles, strength in student support, a community-wide approach to social and emotional learning, and a specialized mixed-age class for students and exceptional needs were the highlights of the visit. So that from a group that visits many, many schools and could make that kind of a statement acknowledging the work of our Wasatch Waldorf School, and we're proud of them becoming full members of that alliance and congratulate them. And I'll tell you also, some of us know as we're looking at schools that at that time, that Vice Chair Phillips, because brought to the attention of Associate Executive Director Stevenson. Now, see, that's a long title. I'm gonna have to think of a shortened way to say it. But they jumped in to help a school that was in need of help, and said, "Here's a school that called and said, what do we do?" I love this because I hope this is what we're all about. That if a school has a concern, that one of the places they call immediately is their authorizer. That we are not talk about NACS in a little bit. I saw some, it seemed to me, from some authorizers around the nation, and there are multiple, that they believe their role was to kind of police their charters and to make sure everybody is in place and things are done. And we have a very different attitude that we're here to support. Once we have signed an agreement with the school, we're in a partnership with them. We have an agreement that is a partnership. And so I'm so happy that you'll hear a little later about Promontory School of Expeditionary Learning and how they called their authorizer. And we'll hear a little bit about their successes and what they're doing. But particularly, I'm going to just say Miss Stevenson at this minute and Vice Chair Phillips, both particularly for jumping in and responding to their call for need and really going out of your way to make sure you were there and helpful to them. And others helped as well, but I love that this was one of the places that they checked in. So thank you for doing that. And we'll hear a little bit more about them a little later. And I already said welcome to Dr. Kramer, but let's let Dr. Kramer have a minute or two, or as much as he wants, to say hello to us and to speak, and I'll pause. Dr. Kramer.
Okay. I think there's a few slides just to guide this part. Executive Director report. And I think the nature of this one might be a little bit more personal, and in the future you can expect that it'll be more about our schools. I think that's just being new to the position gives me an opportunity to just introduce, say some words of introduction. And so for that reason, I just want to say thank you to so many people that have welcomed me to Utah, to this work. It's been outstanding fall in Utah. I grew up in Wisconsin, and so driving through Kebab and going north, we saw with my sons the beautiful fall colors, and it's been outstanding place. And then this morning, looking at in the crispness of the day, the mountains with the snow covered, and had to use my Arizona license card to scrape my windshield wiper, or my windshield rather. But people are very proud of the state, of the work that we do, and people have been very welcome, and much more than, in fact, your great state and its resources and the work is just truly been, though, the people. And everybody has been kind, everybody has been professional, and just made me feel very welcome. And so I think that's where I'd like to start. I am an eager person and get to work. I'm passionate about charter school work. I've been in this sector for many years, all in Arizona, so new to Utah. And so we kick-started some success right from the very beginning, right day one in week one. And I thought it'd be good to just give you a highlight. This won't be regular, but just, what'd you do your first few days and your first few weeks? Because that's a curious question to ask, and I thought just respond to that. And so we kick-started some success really early on with the initial phase, and with that began to meet various stakeholders. Super important to spend a lot of time with the associate executive director. Did one-on-one meetings with all the staff members in the first week, getting to know them personally and professionally. Certainly engaged with board leadership throughout those first days and week, just establishing expectations for how you want this to be run and how you want it to go, because we are here to serve at your pleasure. And so we're here to serve the board in your great work. Had opportunities to meet with the association executive directors. We have tremendous resources in our associations and our network, and had chance to meet with them both on several different occasions, and more meetings planned, even with the state legislature or two, a lawmaker or two, and just getting to meet some charter operators. And I think that's what's really brings great pleasure, is when you can meet some people, and we look forward to it. So really, that was one of the first things, was stepping into relationships and meeting people, and did a lot of that in the first days and in the first weeks. Received input and direction from board leadership. I think that this is instrumental, that I don't come in with an agenda. I don't come in with and definitely ideas and vision that support the strategic plan and the vision and the mission, but really felt fortunate to get the input and to get some direction from board leadership on everything from how a board meeting could go, and the agenda, of course, because it's your agenda. And so I appreciated that time, and that was one of the first days, first weeks types of activities. Really synergized with the executive director and the associate executive director roles. We view this as a co-leadership model that we are both extremely fortunate to be a part of. And I couldn't speak more highly of the professionalism and what the associate director, Marie Stephenson, brings. And so we work together a lot. And I think that's the way that it should be in a co-leadership model. And so it's just ironing out, who does what and where do we overlap, and those types of things, what we continue to refine. But that was done very early on and continues in these first weeks. You got to settle in. just get your computer and get your office, and but not just the office and the logistics for myself, of which IT, I see they're here today as well. Just so gracious, so good at setting me up with tools, but then also with our staff and doing some scheduling that we believe is good for our team at this time. We had several meetings that were collaborative in nature, and we're going to come back to office right now. At least for the next 12 weeks, 25 to 33% of our time will be in office, and time where we can work very deliberately and intentionally together. A couple shifts in the different office spaces, a couple of shifts in other things, but certainly settling in was a priority for the first week. We organized and mobilized staff, so things like organizational chart and just where have we perhaps dropped balls or what are things, and so really empowered the team to do their great work, because we have a smart, we just had a little huddle, and it's just such a smart, such a kind and dedicated group of people. But they need leadership and need the organization and to mobilize, and I feel that I've brought that in the first weeks here. And then initiated some special projects. We're really proud. We have our core functions that we do within our roles. But beyond that, there are a few of our team members that have taken on special projects, such as enhance our office just a little bit and make it with some signage, more where can visitors go when they come to our office, and what could just showcase our robust and our very diverse portfolio of schools. And so I know that Brendan, as a team member, has taken on that special project, and we're monitoring that. There are other special projects like that, each one of them important, and special assignments, not just a project, but assigning people to different volunteer leadership opportunities and things of that nature. And then we've collaborated and worked closely with the USBE, and I've got to say that that's been some time to cherish and time that we've really enjoyed, because it's quality work with quality people. And I know, just a shout out to Deborah, who I think will join us later today, and her team in finance, and a shout out to HR, Michelle Watts and her team on so many different things, from staffing and other things. But it's been outstanding collaboration and work with that USBE. We're unleashing some potential team updates. And so we have settled into an organizational chart that we've communicated clearly to our team. And we're really proud of that organizational chart. There is one new position that I'll be overseeing, and I wanted to just spotlight that. It's a specialist that we're going to bring on to our team, a specialist that is committed to strategic growth and innovation. Your law is so strong in Utah, calling for innovation in choice schools and charter schools. And to be fortunate to have a position like this, and so we've been working with HR and with finance on that particular position. There are also comprehensive reviews, which will look very similar to what they've looked like in the past. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so to say, on this one, because it's worked, and it's worked well. And so our team members that have been overseeing that aspect of what we do are going to add a few what we call value adds in the area of support services. Essentially thinking about ourselves as if we're operators, and then as an authorizer, how do we deliver and go through a 5-year comprehensive review with some value adds. And there won't be many, but we've challenged that team to 3 to 5 value add support pieces that they'll add. And then also annual reviews. We anticipate that it'll be some relationship continued maintenance. One of our team members wisely pointed out that relationships need to be maintained. And so we're looking to go to rural charter schools if we can first, before the snow comes and we can travel. And we do anticipate that type of work and unleashing that in the future. We've really enjoyed kind of understanding and working hard with our financials. We're very fortunate, and we feel a lot of gratitude for the resources that were provided through lawmakers, and we want to be an excellent steward of that. And so we anticipate, not only just tracking that, but then being transparent with that, and having monthly and quarterly reports and those types of things. A shout out to a team member already now that has stepped up, Lisa Cooper, who's in the back of our room. She's been a great partner as we collaborate, and she'll continue to help us with the financial aspects. I'll lead in that area just because my past work experiences have been in some financial areas. We also anticipate reviewing processes like mergers and things like that, and then to fill some open positions. But these are some things to give you a snapshot, kind of a glimpse into some future things. We definitely have some strategic initiatives. And so along with the day-to-day of the first days and weeks, and then kind of like where we're going, again, I use the word fortunate, but I'm going to use it again, the strategic plan, and I think we have a little bit on the agenda today to work through, not much, but it's to have a plan that we can execute is outstanding. Being new to a role, you have the blueprint for success right in front of you if you just execute on that plan. And so in there, 3 things to just call to your attention are just building relationships, whether it's with USBE or whether it's with other authorizers or other things, and then building the capacity of our team, building the capacity of our board, building the capacity of everyone that's involved in this great work that we have called charter schools and charter public schools. So we're building capacity. And then we're also looking to increase innovation and choice in public schools. Again, that position and filling that, we think, is a strategic aspect of that. It really highlights that we can focus in on that particular area. There's also some carry forward dollars that can be associated with that. And we're looking forward to that work to increase innovation. And then also form productive partnerships with authorized schools and provide support. And I think those are that's the key underline right there. We've been doing that, but we're going to double down on that support. And how do the tentacles of support look in everything that we do, whether it's whether it's improvement or whatever the work might be? How do we do it with support in mind first? I do like this last one. If you could just go back a quick, no worries. And it's just that we are also okay with talking through issues. We think that issues and problems are okay. Quote from Gino Wickman, it's about traction and getting a grip on your business, and that's kind of a nice quote. I've also learned of one more. You know Gino Wickman? Yeah, isn't that a fun one? Yeah. And I think there's mushrooms in Utah more than Arizona. So, yeah. Yes, yes. I also have heard another quote more recently that just conflict is like a warm bubble bath for me. And it goes to that there can be a tension, and then there can be some discourse that we're involved in, and that's healthy. That's really important for our work, and we forge into those times where we come on top with better solutions for our students and better products for our families. Okay, we're getting towards the end, so I appreciate your time. Again, a little longer this time, just so you could get an idea of where we're at. We are creating a path to achievement. We are an achievement-driven group, and there are some next steps to that. And so we're going to continue that first week, first month type of activity. It might feel a little haphazard, and in some ways it is. I'll take a meeting when I get one. And whoever reaches out, I'm going to schedule that lunch or that breakfast. And so there's a little bit of that, which is the continuation of activity, right? That's important, that we get activity done and tasks done and meetings had. And so you can expect that in the next bit. We also anticipate a aligning with the strategic plan, creating a 90-day plan. And we think that that could be an important thing. It provides traction for a business, kind of breaking down the really big rocks into, more sizable things that we can do. And so we look forward to work like that. We want to meet more operators and support them. And so whether that's visits and intentionally finding times for me to meet them and for us to meet them and to work with them. We have comprehensive reviews, and annual reviews is a core of what we do. And so we're certainly going to keep our eye on that in the next steps and as a priority. And then also we're going to fill positions, and we're going to leverage whatever resources, the good resources we have to do our work. So those are some things there. Yeah, this is more what will be attuned to, akin to what you see in the future with executive directors. Is I'll still give some operations of what we're doing and some updates, but I think that it's also important in an executive director's report to talk about our schools just a bit and give you some of them. So success, here's an example of Mountainville Academy. I think Assistant Executive Director, you could almost speak more to this if you wanted. That'd be great.
Thank you. We have just a few schools that we pulled from social media that we follow, and they follow us, and some fun things that are happening. So the first one we wanted to spotlight was Mountainville Academy. They had a visit from the Living Planet Aquarium, which has that rainforest van and can bring some different animals and some learning. And they did that for a Genius Day activity. Looked like a lot of fun. At Franklin Discovery Academy, this is a picture of their 6th graders, and if you look closely there, you can see they're holding, it looks like some microgreens and some spinach and things. They had their nutrition team help their 6th graders learn how to read nutrition labels so that the students could feel like they had the power and the knowledge to make positive food choices. I also really loved the quote that they had there, even in this high-tech age, the low-tech plant continues to be the key to nutrition and health. So,
That's great.
and those kids all look very happy. So that must have been a great lesson there. We had some great things going on down south at Vista School. Their 5th grade was studying the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca peoples. And then they planned 3 special projects to try to honor some of those things they had learned. You can see from the picture at the top, they aged paper with tea bags to create some Mayan books there. And then if you go down a little bit, you can see the students enjoying some hot chocolate. That was in honor of the Aztec who helped to cultivate the cacao bean. And then finally, you can see there as well that they made some dried potato beads and watched The Emperor's New Groove while they were working on that. That was set in the Inca Empire, and same with those beads that they learned about. So lots of fun hands-on projects to help their students better understand those ancient groups of people. And then as we were going through social media and picking some fun things to highlight, there were so many things going on for Veterans Day. There were assemblies and speakers and visits from our wonderful folks who are serving in the military. And I thought about putting some of those in here, and then I thought, let's highlight that there are so many talks, so many assemblies and concerts happening. What can we show that's a little bit different? And so it was great to see Terra Academy, which is one of our rural schools. They have this school-wide service project happening this week to provide food to local military families. And so you can see there, we pulled this one, says Wednesday requests, and they were looking for some breakfast type items. Each day this week, they've had different items that they are requesting their students bring in that they can then give to the food pantry that serves those local military families at the Vernal Armory. So great job to Terra Academy. We are excited to see that service in action.
Thank you so much. Hi, good to see you. And you can expect us just in the executive director report doing some similar things of showcasing and highlighting some things. What to expect from future executive director reports then. I think I've prefaced this a little less. This had to be in some ways an introduction, and I wanted to say thank you so much for your warm welcome, for your kindness, and those things. And already in the next meeting, we'll focus where the focus belongs, and that's on our students and on our schools and on our LEAs that we are privileged to support. We'll talk about student enrollment numbers, academic achievement, of course, and then report on any school operational matters and address any regulatory compliance issues. And so that's what you can expect from future executive director reports. The last slide is just gratitude and thank you. It is the season of thanks and gratitude, and sincerely have felt just the kindness and the great work and privilege to do it. And so that concludes the executive director's report. I really appreciate your time, and back to you, Chair Poles.
You see what I mean? A few things have been going on immediately. Dr. Kramer jumped right in, and this team was already up to speed, so he just had to come on the on-ramp and join with them, and off they've been running. So thanks to all of them, and for this whole State Charter School Board staff team. They are really doing good work, and we are fortunate to have them all in place working hard. So thank you. And we will even help Dr. Kramer along the way. We have to help him with Utah-isms, right? That though he may read a city that says Mantua, it's Manaway.
That took me forever.
Thule is Tooele.
Oh.
And hurricane is hurricane. So those kinds of things, right? And if there's an older gentleman who says he's been working on his farm, he does not mean paperwork. He was out in the North Farty doing on his farm. So those form instead. You'll hear Utah-isms as you go along. Just as I know we'll hear Wisconsin-isms probably. Yeah. So Wisconsiners always put things in a bag instead of, yeah. So it's all good. So it's fun to hear all those regionalisms. All right. Thank you for a great report. And we appreciate it as a board. I think I speak for everyone here because it keeps us up to date and allows us to have good things to talk about. When people are saying, what's going on with charters in Utah? We can say, let's tell you what we know and some new things. So that's very helpful. Thank you so much. All right. So let's talk about our consent calendar. That's our next item of business. Anyone have anything you'd like to pull from that consent calendar? If not, I'd appreciate a motion.
You looked right at me. I will move to adopt the consent calendar.
Thank you. And a motion from Member Smith to approve the consent calendar. A second.
I will second that.
And Member Bassett, a second. All right, a motion to approve consent. Any discussion from anyone relative to those consent items? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, there we are. Let's move to our first action item, and it's a staff report update on our State Charter School Board budget and potential action to approve that. Know that we did approve a budget, as you remember, in an earlier meeting, but this is now with this team in place and working hard to put some things together that will that we believe will make this budget stronger and more in compliance. And so I'll turn the time to Dr. Kramer.
Thanks again. I'm going to hand those if you want to move them around. It's also up on the screen. When I say it's a restructured, a revised budget, and if you would allow me a few minutes to just walk through some talking points and highlight some things. So yes, we have the numbers in front of us, but I thought just an explanation, just ensuring of you some things, speak about the corrections, and then just refer back to the budget and plan might be a good use of our time. It also if allowed, Chair Bowles, and then there's opportunity for questions, of course, and however you chair that. So I'll just kind of start off, and then as it becomes discussion, if needed, or whatnot. It started with I view as like a triangulation of sorts, in that our charter board leadership, and then also staff, and then the USBE, just kind of all started looking at things and asking some questions and seeking some clarification. All three different groups just were looking for it. And so as I stepped into the role of the executive director, definitely felt the triangulation of those different groups and tried to bring it together. But that is really where it started, was just in working and hearing notes and meetings from the assistant superintendent or from others. And so I think that first there's just an explanation of, I wouldn't call it problem, but issue, as I referred to just yesterday. It's okay to have these things. And so in the staffing area, there's been some flux, and it's been a bit fluid. And that's pretty natural, right? That there would be some, that happens, that there could be some ins and some outs of different positions, even at the highest level, that there could be, ins and outs. And so there was some staffing changes that we've been going through in the current fiscal year. And I think that relates to leadership of our staff at the top, vacant positions that I referred to, or leaving certain positions that are open vacant. There were some market adjustments that took place, and we were fortunate to have those market adjustments. And so the problem or the issue it was a natural one, in that there were just some staffing changes. Really, the solution to that was to settle that as best as we can, to plan as best as we can. We can't control what the staff looks like by any means, or what the staff structure looks like, but to the best of our ability to settle into a staffing plan that fits within the fiscal year 24 parameters. And that was really important for USBE. It was important for our board leadership and board, and then also just for our staff. So the solution was not a difficult one, but one that just needed attention and needed a real focused effort. It was to create a staffing plan. It had to fit within the fiscal year 24 budget, but in addition to that, so it's a both and, it also needs to be sustainable for the future. So while there could be money through a reworking that could become available through vacancies and those sorts of things, super important per the direction of the USBE and again, all the groups that triangulated together, that we make sure that our staffing plan is sustainable for fiscal year 25 and into the future. And so I think that was what we engaged in as we worked to explain them. At least one of the most major issues was just kind of working through that. We really worked hard to then eliminate a few positions that we felt as a team we didn't need or that we could do differently. We reclassified some positions that might have been a higher level to something that was at a specialist position or something that we felt fit. We also, that would be an example of like going from a coordinator to a specialist. Again, HR was very instrumental in helping us with this understanding. And so we don't have a staffing plan that has coordinators. We have executive director, associate executive director, and then from there. So that was another part of that solution. And then we just had to update the market adjustments that were previously mentioned. And so just incorporating that into it. Another part of this work over the past week or so was to ensure that we had correct allocations and correct resources. It was important to feel really confident with the numbers, and I believe that we've gotten there. Maybe misunderstandings just with language use. Financial language can be a bit confusing, and sometimes an allocation, which can be a resource, or it can be, funding or a per pupil amount of money, can also be used interchangeably for like something allocated to, which would be something that's almost like, where do we want this expense to go? So we just kind of cleaned up that vernacular, that terminology, that financial terminology, got everybody on the same page with those things. Then we also just also had a little bit of clarification that we felt needed with this market adjustment amount of money that will be coming for charter public schools, and then it'll be ongoing. So it's coming. The amount for us is $57,971.72. Thank you, Lisa. That's a note on the bottom here. Appreciate it when the ones that you work with go to the cent. But that, as clarified, and we just greatly appreciate Deborah and her team. She may be on. We certainly invited her so that her presence just alone is that we've been working together on this. This has not been done in a vacuum or anything, but she's been great to help us understand that allocation or that special funding, which we're fortunate to have to adjust for the increases to the salary that many have enjoyed between fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. And so I listened, asked a lot of questions. It's the nature of an executive director is to ask a lot of questions. And it became clear that we were really confident with the numbers, with the allocations that we've been given, with noting that special thing. So we feel good about that. And then we had some funds that we wanted to correct. And these would be budgeted expenses that we want to reflect in the correct categories or put them in the correct places. Can't move between funds. We learned that pretty quickly. I know that from Arizona too, that when something is allocated, there's a special purpose. So we've taken the liberty to, if we do make any changes, to only make those changes in places where it's really allowed. And so I think that cleans up. There's a few little things that we're working through still. They're more technical in nature than anything, with encumbrances and an invoice that we're just trying to get totally squared away. Those are small, not material, and that we're diligently working on along with the USBE. And so that I would call the correction to funds that might have been in the wrong place. An example, yeah, please.
So just probably in the correction to funds category, I mean, I think I brought this up maybe a year ago. We are supposed to receive meeting pay for these meetings.
It's not very much. I think it's like $64. To the best of my knowledge, we're still not receiving that. We are also supposed to receive mileage reimbursement for traveling, and I don't think that's happened for several years. So I would like for that to be corrected.
Agree. Yeah, no. Member Smith, that is an excellent thing that USBE has brought to our attention. Is they brought it to us, several others. We're working hard on that. Even after this meeting, we're hoping that we can shorten the timelines for mileage reimbursements and everything. The answer is yes, we're going to get there. We're on it, and appreciate that. And then I think the fourth part of this work that culminates in this, right? It kind of all gets boiled down to numbers and a summary. But the final explanation that I want to do is just our staff, ensuring that our staff have what they need to do what they need to do for our schools, for our LEAs, and that's important that we're very fortunate again for the resources that we have, but we want to use them wisely. And in working with staff, we've done work on the staffing plan. We're looking at a lot of services, contracted services, for strategic reasons to execute that strategic plan. I won't name these because they haven't gone through a process yet, but there are some that we've already engaged in some conversation. How can we leverage expertise, and how can we leverage some of these organizations to receive contract services, to do some things that are outlined in the strategic plan. And so that's was important. I had on here travel and board reimbursement was on there. But it's really good. And then there are benefits for this, and I'll briefly outline those. One is just clearing up these 4 things, explaining the issue or the largest issue to kind of work through, gaining confidence and ensuring confidence in our what we have coming in, correcting any of those, those categories as they needed to be, and then having a budget plan that reflects what we need. And so that's important. It also benefit to the board. I think in hearing this is that you have an executive director that's going to dig into this type of work. I think it is important, but I don't do it alone. And that's why Lisa's sitting here already, because in a short amount of time as a staff has stepped into and up to the task of just, putting spreadsheets together that help us analyze this and understand sustainability. That was a question I was asking a lot and was important for the USBE. And Lisa outlined that so that we could really see the detail and ensure that, this is good for this year, it's good for the future years. I think the benefit to the board is that Team Emery certainly continues to be a contributor in all things related here because we co-lead. The other benefit to the board is that we've been engaged and worked closely with the USBE. And I think if Deborah is on the call, her presence or wanting to be here, I think speaks volumes that she and her team were so good to work with on multiple occasions, so accessible. And so that's how that worked out. And then it adds checks and balances and processes and procedures that I know are important for us. They're also important at the USBE level. And so the benefit to the board is that you can start to get more of this type of thing in your financial subcommittee and other places. And it gets a better plan or budget. A budget is never perfect. It's a plan. We're never going to get it to the penny. But we want to get it as best as we can so that we can execute that plan. And so those are the benefits to the board. And I appreciate a lot of these notes that organize this. Board leadership, Vice Chair Phillips, thanks for helping kind of outline some of the ways to speak to that. So that does lead us to this then, so if it does boil down to and get to a budget, I think what's really remarkable and good about this is that it remains really similar, very similar. And if it had been a lot of changes, I think we'd have a lot more work in front of us, a lot more conversation that we would need. But by addressing the staffing thing, and you can see the current budget that this board approved, USBE approved, and then you see the proposed budget in the middle column there. And the proposed budget actually reduces our personnel for this year. That's okay. Because if we increased it this year, we wouldn't be sustainable in fiscal year 25 and beyond. And so we accept that. We like that. We think that that's a smart plan. And it also provides for us, it moves those salary expenses. You can see that the biggest expense is it goes into contract services that I referenced before. There's a few other places that are small, not material, I think covered by the new revenue that'll come of the $57,000. So the 2 notes on the bottom, and you can see the budget change. We thought it was important to see where were we? Where are we proposing we're at now? And then also what's the changes that were incorporated in that. So thanks, Lisa, for putting that together. And so that leaves us with some notes. The largest changes are in personnel and contract services. You can see the numbers reflect that. The budget changes for personnel are sustainable going forward, and the budget allows for staff to meet current needs. As we've worked together, we believe that this meets. And the second note, which isn't in here, is just that after the legislative session, we'll receive that additional money that was talked about for the market adjustments. And so this is the product of our work over the last bit. It's been collaborative, not my product by any means, just fortunate to lead on it. And it is for Chair Bowles for you to discuss as your board views or questions or whatever. I'll turn it back to you, but that is the recommendation and where I think we should go.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, and thanks for everyone who has worked on making sure that we have the correct allocations, note in our budget that the program codes are in the right places, the money's attached correctly, and for making us sustainable. We do want to be that. All of us want to have it done correctly, and so we appreciate it. What questions does anyone have from the board? Any? Yeah, please, Vice Chair Phillips.
So much. And mine aren't so much technical as maybe just categorical. Do you feel that this budget represents the needs that you and your staff have for the in-state travel and out-of-state travel that may be contemplated, as well as the resources needed for the innovation specialist?
We do. Thank you for your question. And this budget does address those things. We also do have a carry forward budget that's separate of this, which also addresses some resource needs that we have. So between the two, we feel really well positioned to deliver on the work of the authorizer.
Thank you. I hadn't realized, and I should have because we looked at it closely a month or so ago, but that eases my soul to be reminded about the carry forward funds.
Additional questions from anyone you have? We appreciate the work. Then, knowing that, we would like to have a board motion if someone is willing. Member Smith?
I would like to move that we adopt the proposed budget recommendations.
All right. A motion to accept the proposed budget recommendations that we've just heard. A second to that motion,
I'll second that motion.
and a second from Member Cisneros. All those in. Oh, I should ask if there's further discussion first. I don't think so, since I asked if you had questions. But all right, let's move forward. All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Kramer and team, for making sure that that budget is accurately represents the dollars that we have and represents us well as well. So let's go to our next information item, a staff report and update on third-party survey. We talked about in our prior meeting on direction of the board. Ms. Stephenson will give us an update about that.
Thank you, Chair Bowles. Yes, I am so pleased to update the board on the conversations that have occurred since our last board meeting regarding the third-party survey. There were a few goals that we had as a team as we began those conversations that we wanted something that we could automate. And it wasn't, hey, when did we last give that survey? Has it been a year? Has it not been a year? Are we bugging everybody? We really wanted to find a way to automate it. We also wanted to make sure that we're asking the right questions and that they are questions that will give us the data that we need, and that would help us be able to make then that bigger data-driven impact if we could get those questions right and make sure that they were well understood and something that the portfolio would feel like they had the knowledge and the insight to be able to address those questions accurately. We also wanted to make sure that whatever we received from a survey would help us to create a feedback culture where with these automated surveys, we could get information, make adjustments and changes as needed, and then survey again at some point and make sure that our culture is really built on feedback and continuing to improve and to meet the needs of our stakeholders and the schools in our portfolio. And then that last goal, we also wanted to make sure that we were able to target specific groups. And with this, of course, surveying across the portfolio, surveying our larger stakeholders, but then also being able to talk about how are we meeting the needs of new board members, or how are we meeting the needs of charter operators that are brand new to charter operating, or what if you've been in charter operating for 20 years? Your needs are very different than a brand new charter operator. And so again, just really wanting to have the ability to target some specifics within the data and within the surveys that we have. As we explored these goals and we're trying to find a system that would help us meet that, we actually found a little bit more of a comprehensive answer than just surveys. And so we wanted to share that with the board today and see if that's something you would like us to continue to pursue, or if it would be better to focus solely on surveys. But we think that this is a comprehensive solution that meets all of these goals and more. So I have a short video. In here, they are going to specifically talk about employees. And on the next slide, we called out how this could apply both to our internal staff as employees, but then also how this applies to the larger portfolio. And so when they say, employees, yes, we're thinking about internally our own employees, but then also our school operators. Not that they're employees of us, but kind of giving you some context for this short video that we will see.
Down, but disengagement will kill it. Disengaged employees are 18% less productive, make 60% more errors, and are 3 times more likely to take a sick day. In fact, low engagement costs businesses up to $500 billion a year. That's a lot of money. But there's hope for you. Pingboard is here to help you deliver a better employee experience to fix your disengagement problem. From one platform, you can automate your onboarding experience, build a beautiful org chart, create employee profiles, play games to connect with coworkers, help managers lead better with one-on-one meetings, celebrate great work with peer recognition, and uncover even more ways to deliver a better employee experience with surveys. You can solve for disengagement and become a people-first company. It's your best competitive advantage for recruiting, retention, and revenue. And we'll help you get there.
So real short, real sweet there. But to dive a little deeper into that, sorry, nope, we do not want to see that again. Let's close that. There we go. So first and foremost, we loved that idea, being a people-first organization. And as we outlined in the 2 different columns, if we are going to continue and work with Pingboard, this gives us that opportunity that on the left side, we can onboard our new employees, we can help connect with coworkers, recognize great work, and then have those leadership tools for employee engagement. Those are all, pretty basic things that we would expect. But then as we've explored with this company, talking first about the surveys and then leading into what else they can do and how else it can support us, we saw some potential that we could use this system to help onboard new schools and onboard new school leaders. We could also help us connect with our schools. Yes, of course, there's going to be visits, but what other ways can we connect when we're not able to be there in person or not always having to hop onto a Zoom? And so it just gives us another touch point with the schools that we authorize. It also gives us that ability to recognize great work so that we can call it out in our meetings, we can see it on our social media, and we can also send, kudos across the internet to each other. And then there is that authorizer tool for school engagement where we can have those meetings. It does have the surveys that are automated, that have research-based questions, and then help give feedback that would help us to create that feedback culture as we discussed on the first slide. So that's our presentation, Chair Bowles. We'll turn it back to you or to...
Chime, just a quick thing. I think USBE uses the Pingboard product.
They do,
Okay.
yes.
Right. And so we thought that was another great benefit of that particular vendor, not that we've gone with them. And then the surveys were, when we've seen a couple they were outstanding. The survey module itself, which is what the board's interest in, was initially with the surveys. The survey portion was really the strong suit. I think we agreed, right? So just a couple of comments.
So great. If we're using just surveys, the state board also has a contract with Qualtrics, which we can just tap into at no cost. But this has much more. So I'm seeing what you're you're asking towards. Member Spiker maybe has a question or.
Yeah, I was curious when you just mentioned about USBE. Are they using it to connect with schools, school leaders, as well as internal employees? As we're mentioning that we would use the tool potentially.
As far as I'm aware, they're just using it internally.
Okay.
And as we were starting to explore that option about could this be used externally as well, in those conversations, the individuals we've been speaking with at Pingboard saw that as an innovative idea. And, as we explored, we thought that that is something that very well could occur, but hasn't yet with the USB.
Can I ask a follow-up question
Absolutely.
to Member Cisneros? Just based on this quick presentation, do you see yourself as a current charter school leader in our state wanting to interact or utilize that tool to connect with the staff?
Based on this, no. But to the initial rollout point, a 20-year operator has a very different need than a 1-year operator. So I'm looking at it from a 20-year lens. What I do appreciate it, though, is the focus of people first. And I think our strategic plan and the conversations we've had and our recruitment for the executive director, the message that we have put out is that we want to be a people first authorizer. So I appreciate that aspect of it. But I think if we can use it to tailor to needs, then yes, it's very good. It's when we start expecting 20-year authorizers to act, or 20-year operators to act like first-year operators, that's when we start to cause frustration, not support.
Yeah, thanks. I was just curious. That's all. So thanks.
No, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And sure, if I can follow up, I have noticed a profound shift from an operator in the view, and that I really appreciate. I feel a little bit like a pest, but yet I'm not made to feel like a pest when I do need to task staff. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you. And as we heard, that's the attempt is to reach a variety of operators who have of LEAs who have different needs. So thank you so much, Vice Chair Phillips.
I really am excited about the possibilities here. It's very friendly, it's forward-looking, and it embeds within it tools that will allow us to do some of the things that we've prioritized. I have a question that sounds a little cynical, and I don't mean it to, because we want to be an organization that our schools who are struggling turn to and feel like they can be vulnerable with in order to get support. And I think that we've already had a sea change there, and I think that there will still be schools we need to build trust with. Hence this question. Does this tool allow us, if we so desire, and again, it may become an obsolete consideration, I hope it does, to give surveys that are anonymously reported? Because there are still some of the schools that won't answer right now because they feel like that might make them the target of an unwanted investigation.
May I?
Yes,
Thank
please
you.
respond.
Yes, all of the surveys have the option to be with names and who you're surveying as far as the responses come in, or to be completely anonymous and have the data reported disaggregated or all put together into different ways. And so we have every option available as far as what that would look like.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. What I love about that is that, particularly if we communicate that well, when it is and when it is not anonymous, and what we're going to do with the data, I think that it gives us the opportunity to get a much greater response, even from the data sample, but also maybe a little bit more honest responses at times, especially if we're asking about hard things that we really want to improve in. And then on the other hand, it gives us the opportunity to have responses from known individuals and schools when we want to be able to reach back to them and say, what did you mean by this? This sounds so innovative, we want to follow up. So I think we actually need both kinds of feedback at times, but we need our schools to feel comfortable giving both kinds of feedback. So
Thank you for expressing that for us. Thank you. Member Cisneros.
Clarification and then a question. Was the contractor conducting surveys for us last year? And so then would this be, if I'm understanding that correctly, would this be in conjunction with the contractor, or would this replace the contractor?
Respond.
Are you referring to the consultants? I believe they gave a survey. I haven't seen that data directly, so that's something we could follow up with them. We have, engaged back in conversations with them as well, and so if we were to use this, then we could take this data and share that with them and use that to continue to drive our work forward, if that was a desire that the board had.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that we all have that same question. I don't think any of us saw results of a prior survey, and so we're really interested to know moving forward. Personally, I'm not as worried about what was, but what will be, and to do the right way moving forward. And so, but we do want to see results, and we appreciate the report today that you're following up. Are there more questions, anyone? Just know, we know that you've been working hard on making sure that you've looked for a good way to make those connections and to gather information through Pingboard, if that's the direction that you will recommend. So we'll just know that we'll come back in the future when you're ready for that. And as you're ready, just to bring that back, and then you can give us final report. But I think you're hearing from the board that this looks like an interesting direction. Yeah, thank you. for
Thank
that
you.
work. Yeah, please.
I just wanted to make sure that it got on sort of the public record that while it's true we have not seen the results from the survey that was given by our consultants, I've not, and that sounds like most of the board members and staff have not. We do have recent survey data given by our, gathered by our own staff members about the trainings that we've done in school year 22-23 that were responded to by a high percentage of those who received the request, and that showed very, very favorable, responses to what the training division of our group has done for charters. I think that was extremely positive. It sort of, predates our sort of sea change toward kind of a new strategic plan, but it demonstrates how eager and maybe hungry our group was for the kind of thing that Ms. Stephenson was providing with the support from the rest of our staff. So we do have some really good recent data, at least about our training, that is very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's multiple years actually, because they've asked for that feedback with the training. So thank you for the training, and thank you for gathering feedback so that training can continue to improve and move forward. All right, I'm going to move to our next information item, and it's a report. We had kind of talked about the potential of a retreat in the future and having some time just to sit and have these discussions. And so Ms. Stephenson is going to update us on that question we had as a board.
Thank you again, Chair Bowles. Yes, this was another topic that we discussed last month about having a board retreat. And excuse me, there were a number of goals that we were incorporating into that based on that conversation as well. We wanted it to be something that was engaging. Nobody wants to sit through, a retreat that is boring or feels like, could have been an email, right? We would love to have an engaging retreat. We also wanted to make sure that it was built into the schedule. We recognize that our board members are very busy professionals in their careers, and that taking additional time can sometimes be a challenge. We also needed to be mindful of changes in our board composition. We spoke about that last month, that we have some members who are transitioning off at the end of the school year, and then we'll have some new board members coming on. And so wanting it to be engaging and powerful, but also being mindful that there will be changes within the year. And then the last goal kind of came up as we were at NACSA and talking about some ideas was, would it be nice to do something to celebrate the holidays that are coming up, and to do something together as a board and a staff to honor the holiday season that we are about to enter. So, with this, we would like to suggest that Thursday, December 14th, which would be our typical board meeting day in December, that we invite Onyx Offsites and Trainings to come and to help us lead a retreat here at the building. So, it would be your same place, same time, same date that hopefully you are already planning on in your schedule. Onyx, they do planning and coordination and send folks that will help run a retreat for us that day. Specifically, we've been exploring the idea of a Hollywood game night, although it would be during the day. And with that, we're going to have some trivia based on strategic planning, our faculty and staff, a little bit holiday themed as well, and then some time to also work together and continue to talk about the work that we're engaged in and how we can keep progressing.
I know there's a few more. The two places to do homework, if you want to do well during that time, would be brush up on your holiday movies and those types of things, and then your strategic plan and history of our great schools. So I know there's a few more bullet points.
Fabulous. Questions about that report? Anyone?
I'm a sucker for a really great white elephant.
Yeah.
Do.
Right. Oh, and thank you for that update and for being mindful of these folks, the time that they've already scheduled. That will work really well. From my perspective. Anyone else? Other feedback? We just heard white elephant feedback. That's not bad. That's a good feedback. Anything else? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that report. Our next item is review the rewording of our strategic plan. There's some small changes. We've already approved a strategic plan, but just some little bits of update, and Vice Chair Phillips will do that.
This is the smallest thing ever, and yet it could be large. And so I felt like I had to have integrity. I needed to bring it back to the board. First of all, the strategic plan that you received, sent out by staff, reflects the formatting changes that the board desired in our previous discussion. But the one thing that is changed, and it is literally one thing, instead of saying creative articulation agreements, it says articulation agreements and other creative agreements. Because what we talked about was the fact that right now we're kind of in a box with VSIP and with our articulation agreements. Those are all great, but that other agreements could be made, for instance, and our discussions highlighted, though really, we don't know what could be coming if we are innovative, that schools that were not identified as struggling or needing school improvement or school turnaround could also decide to merge. They could also decide to have unusual agreements that were not per se articulation agreements, but other kinds of sharing. Chair Bowles even discussed how there might be some way of supporting schools as they launch consortia that are much like the rural schools consortia, small districts consortia that would allow resource sharing. That would be in urban areas rather than rural areas for our charters, because our charters are small, much like rural districts. Even when they're in urban areas, there are those that are small. So in any case, our discussion was about creative agreements, not just specifically creative articulation agreements. So I was hoping that we could make that modest change, which better reflects what we were actually, I think, assuming that the strategic plan said, but that it didn't quite say that. So that's really the only language change at all, and I just wanted to make sure that the board was comfortable with that. That will reflect and tie in with some of the redlining of the Utah Legislature's charter section statute in administrative code that we are hoping that the legislature will adjust in this coming session as well.
A single word or two sometimes can make a huge difference. The difference between may and shall, for example, makes a huge difference. So, any questions about that word changing? Anyone have any concern about that adjustment? as Vice Chair Phillips has explained it. Okay. Thank you for that update. And all of us need to, you all have copies. You'll have copies of this update, right? So that you can make sure that you're prepared for next month. Anyone who needs a new strategic plan sent to them, maybe we'll have
I can send it out.
everyone just has, so everyone has copies. So if we prepare, you'll have to do the holiday movies on your own, but everyone has Google. But this one you can make sure you're up to date. Wonderful. All right. And we are right back close to being on schedule then. We are ahead even a little bit. But we do want to talk about those, as we went to NACSA, it's not only good for those who attended to share what they learned from NACSA. It's a big expense to send folks to a conference, and we want to be responsible relative to that. And so the purpose of sharing is to say, okay, having gone, these are the things that we learned and what the things that we'd like to share. And we hope that it also will intrigue some who were not able to this time, if we get the dates early to you, that you'll be able to join in a subsequent year. Because it is a good learning experience. We're working with folks from around the nation who do the same work that we do in slightly different ways. You know, folks, as you talk around tables and you find out that we're not all the same, but we are the same. So there's some differences and a lot of similarities. So we just ask those who attended this year to share with us. Ms. Stevenson sent out be ready to do these kinds of things. So I think we all are. And those who didn't attend, just so we can share with you what we learned. And so we're all kind of on the same page if we talk about any of those issues. So we are now at that point to do that. So those who attended, I think you already know that I did, Vice Chair Phillips, in beautiful downtown Oakland, California. Actually, we did like it. And we found that Member Cisneros knew that area because she grew up around that East Bay area. And we had great ice cream for one night. As a result, we all made our way there because she knew where to go. I mean, spectacular ice cream. It was really great, among other things. So, and it's nice just to be able to have time and talk to each other informally. And we don't really discuss board business, but we do talk about what we're learning from the conference and have discussion about things that we've learned. So I said Vice Chair Phillips, Member Cisneros, which I already said also, because she's knew where the ice cream was. Member Bassett also ate ice cream with us on that night. And we also had Smriti, Lisa, and Marie. So I'll say it that way because we were more informal at that point. Rebecca and Crystal, Cindy, Brian, Marie, Smriti, and Lisa. And so we're each going to share with you some of what we learned at that conference, and that'll take us up to lunch. So hopefully we're so engaging you forget about running to lunch too soon. All right. Who wants to begin? Should we just start around the table? I'm even going to say, Lisa, why don't you come up and join us at Oh, why did I think you did? Riti did go. Yeah. Thanks for being here to listen, though. All the team. All right. Smriti, do you want to start? All right, perfect.
Hello everyone. So it was my first time attending a NACSA conference, and it was a great experience seeing the bigger charter community out there, getting to mingle with other authorizers, getting to spend some really good time with board members and staff, and of course attending various sessions. So, you know, out of all those different sessions that I attended, there were a couple that really stood out. I think it's very relatable to me and my job here at the SCSB. So I just want to talk a little bit about those sessions. So the first one that really, intrigued me was a finance session. It was named Warning Signs, 10 questions that can identify financial troubles in advance. So basically these questions were focused on like these questions that we could ask our school's finance teams, about their practices that may uncover potential problems in advance. So, let me just read it out, these questions, which are very, very, like, full, oh yeah, we should be asking those questions. Why didn't I think about it? It's a great, questions put together, I would say. So the first one is, have the school established roles, responsibilities, policies, and procedures to create clarity about who is doing what, when, where, why, and how? Question number 2, have the school set up and do they maintain their accounting infrastructure to preserve a solid financial foundation? Question number 3, do the school process payroll precisely and promptly each pay period to respect their workforce efforts? Question number 4, do the schools ace their audits annually to demonstrate to all stakeholders that their financial houses are in order? Question number 5, do the schools clearly translate their visions into reality-based annual and multi-year budgets? Question number 6, do the schools prepare and analyze vital financial reports, forecasts, and metrics at a regular frequency to assess their fiscal health and make informed decisions? Question number 7, do the schools control cash carefully to ensure plenty of tomorrows can exist? Question number 8, do the schools grow wisely and know whether, when, and how to expand, replicate, or pause until they're better prepared? Question number 9, do the schools mitigate risk proactively to maximize stability and minimize disruptions? And question number 10, do the schools value their invaluable talent and technology to amplify impact and reduce turnover? So moving on to the next sessions, which was embedding indicators of distress in monitoring and oversight. So basically the indicators of distress was collected from across the nation and what specific indicators authorized found in the analysis of their own portfolios. So the indicators were identified in these following areas. The first one is leadership, and some of the evidence that includes distress is inability to sustain leadership, lack of leadership, etc. And the other area is in the area of governing board. Some of the evidences include board's inability to hold school leaders accountable, inability to convene the board. The next area, operation, evidence such as failure to be responsive to market needs, breakdown in compliance and reporting functions. Other area, finance, evidence such as failure to properly manage finances and misappropriation of funds. Other area, talent, evidence includes hiring challenges, high teacher turnover, etc. And the other area is culture. Evidence includes poor student and family connection to school, inhospitable professional culture. And lastly, the area of instruction, evidence such as poor or declining assessment outcomes, lack of alignment in curriculum. So to wrap up, I think, using these warning signs and, like some of these indicators of stress, we can be better authorizers and by using effective oversight and strengthening support, the support that we can provide to our schools. How can we better improve? I think these tools can be really used. It's very impactful in our jobs, is what I think. And lastly, I also learned about an AXA financial working group. Basically, it's finance people, like different authorizers coming together. I guess it's a monthly meeting that they have, and I have reached out to the NACSA team to be part of it, so that I get to learn from different authorizers. It could be what I understood it could be any kind of finance discussions, just simple mathematics to really complex finance things that other authorizers see, and we could ask questions, help them answer those questions. So it's just all the finance people coming together. So I am, hopefully I get to be able to connect in that group and update you guys, if I come across something that's really needed to be shared, that's what I think is really should be helpful for our charter world here. So yeah, that's all I had to share.
Absolutely. And to make those connections, just that piece alone is worth going and making those connections with others. So we're part of the national movement, because sometimes we have been a little bit isolated. And I think we've actively worked on trying to make contacts and build relationships. So thank you. I even learned that some authorizers receive a monthly payment from the schools they authorize, that they pay them to do the authorizer work. We have a different structure, but still we can learn from how they manage all the financial elements. So thank you for that report. Thank you. All right. Someone want to go next? Ms. Stephenson, do you want to jump in? And then
I would be happy to. Thank
if
you.
you'll do that, then let's just go up around this way. Member Cisneros around. Okay.
Perfect. I was just finishing organizing my notes, so that's great. I ended up having two really big takeaways that I enjoyed from our time at NACSA. First and foremost, I think the opportunity to network was huge, and being able to network with other authorizers as well as different contractors, and re-engaging with some of our friends and consultants with the Charter Institute. That was really wonderful. And so absolutely enjoyed the networking opportunities and the ideas and the conversations that came out of those. As far as the classes I attended, most of the ones that I went to focused on different aspects of how we assess our charter schools and what a performance framework could look like or should look like, or a lot of different theories were brought into that. And as we continue to work with our schools and try to add those value adds to their comprehensive reviews and their annual reviews, I think this is a really great opportunity for us. A few of the thoughts that I jotted down that I would love to share today. One of the first ones was that as we work with our schools, perhaps nothing should be siloed, and that everything the school does connects into a performance framework, and that all of the aspects are important. Going along with that, it was brought up the idea that state assessment is important, but doesn't necessarily need to be the primary indicator of success. And that, sometimes, like we had the COVID year, that wasn't even available. So how do we then assess if these schools are doing the things they need to do? And that, perhaps we use that as a baseline or a piece of it, but then allow for those different nuances of who our schools are seeking to serve. They also talked about if there is a school, whether it's a specific group of students or a school themselves that is failing in that baseline or that piece, perhaps we say, okay, well, our end goal is we want to be able to read, write, and do work. And so how do we then work backwards to approach that? And they used the example of a school that had a goal about attendance because they were failing their state assessments, but they had multiple students who had not been engaged in school for over a year. And so before you can really say, how we're doing on our state assessments, we have to at least get them to the building. And that those state assessments are important, but some other nuances might be brought a little louder into that conversation. They also talked about when we're working with our schools, maybe we also can ask this question, and I really liked the reframing of it that I thought could be helpful in conversations. They said, we all care about kids, we all care about our money. How are you showing you're a good steward of other people's children and other people's money? And so instead of just keeping it so cut and dry, but how are you showing that you're a good steward of these things that matter to everyone? And I really loved that. Going back to that concept again about academics, they said we really, as charter authorizers should work on remembering the and. We're looking at academic achievement and enrichment. Academic achievement needs to happen. It's a school, but that and can be such a crucial piece. The two other things, and I'm sorry, I'm probably taking a long time here, but I just absolutely loved this, especially as we look in the coming months to our new school applications. They talked about, are we looking for folks who are hungry, humble, and smart? And that, we are here as the authorizer. We can support you. We can teach you what needs to be turned in when. We can teach you, different things and support you as a school. But really what we're just looking for is hungry, humble, and smart, that they're willing to engage with the authorizer and to learn those things they need to be successful operators. The final thought then, just again, as we've been talking about risk aversion and how much is appropriate and do we want to take chances on innovative models, I loved this. Unicorns don't exist, but you do. And so as we have, different groups coming in, maybe it's not a unicorn, this perfect school that's going to be set up 100% perfect from day one, but these folks exist. And if they are hungry, humble, and smart, what can we do to help support them and help them in achieving academics and something else that adds value to school choice in the state of Utah?
Thank you.
Okay, I was told to plan 5 to 7 minutes, so buckle in. No, because I've had thoughts that I've added to my other thoughts as we've been sitting here. I was must have been in the same session with the hungry, humble, and smart, and as Ms. Stephenson reminded us of that phrase, I actually thought our staff right now is hungry, humble, and smart, because we've been talking for a long time about, we come back from conferences and we get excited and we share out and then we go back to the status quo because it's easy. And we have a chance right now to not do that. And so I was really excited to hear about the new position, who that person will specialize in innovation. And so somebody who actually can move that work forward and light a fire on change and innovation. And I'm so stinking excited about that. I can't even tell you. Okay, so 3 things that I loved before I get into my sessions, because you're going to judge me harshly when I tell you my 2 favorite sessions. Loved getting to know the staff and other board members in different and unique ways. And one of the things I actually wrote down was being able to share the ice cream parlor from my youth. If you're ever in the Bay Area, Fentons, I'll give a shout out to them by name. I also loved being able to kind of geek out on organizational development with the Charter Schools Institute. So that's kind of my first love is org development, and led me into education, which is my second love and probably more my passion. But just to be able to think through how organizational development is so critical to each of our little baby LEAs being able to create a framework for success within their own visions and views of how they seek to be good stewards of other people's children, especially in the context of choice. So I really enjoyed having that time to do that. Takeaway was I took the indicators of distress actually back to my own board and have asked them to do their own audit. And I think that's worth promoting out and pushing to our individual boards to say, check on your own indicators of distress. That shouldn't be something that has to come top down, but instead schools can do bottom up. A couple of us as board members said we're going to try to get a conference presentation put together for next year. Member Phillips even said she's going to come back and rock it with us. So looking forward to that. I will hold them to that. Okay, so then to my couple that being totally transparent. A couple of the sessions I went to, the last one in particular, and I don't think it was because it was the last day and I was tired. Y'all know what one I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Okay. I won't get into those. But the ones that spoke to me most in this order, contracts. Yes, I am that person. That's the judgment. The contracts class was phenomenal, which I don't know what that says about me as a human. I had so many notes from there, but here I'll sum it down. Contracts are the living embodiment of the strategic plan. I could mic drop right there, right? Okay. But the contract should clarify the SEA's role versus the authorizer's role. And I think sometimes, and especially the older iterations of our contract, tried to cover the state legislature's role, the SCA's role, the author's role, the school. Like, we were trying to put everybody's roles in. And you could put one line that says you have to follow the law, right? Like, I mean, it's problem solved. They said it's really important to strike a balance between flexibility and accountability. Where in the contract do we want to lean into the flexibility that the legislature gives us? And where do we need to hold hard and fast to those essential elements that a school has to notify us about? The contract should explain why the school was approved in just a few sentences, because that becomes material. The last 2 points they made is, who is the audience of your contract? So that should govern the way that your contract is formed. And then how do we make goals malleable within a contract? And I think that speaks also to Ms. Stephenson's point. Like, you have a school who they want to get to achievement data, but they have an attendance issue. So they're rolling back their achievement, but you want to hold them to this goal. But then if they achieve that goal, that's no longer their goal. So we have a unique challenge. In other states, they're coming back annually, or they're coming back 3 to 5 years, and they're rewriting these charters. And so as they're doing a review and rewriting a charter every 3 to 5 years, it becomes a little bit easier to rewrite goals. And we have a unique challenge in the fact that that's not our reality. And I actually was talking to the attorney for Georgia state authorizer, and brilliant young lady who we really spent some time. She didn't really have any good answers, but she was a good thought partner. And I think she was one of those people who would be willing to continue to be a thought partner on us for contracts and kind of some of the things that they learned. The second one I went to was actually just about missions and the types of authorizers that you can be, and using the phrase, because we value. And so being able to say in any, and I think that was a conversation Crystal and I had, or I'm sorry, Member Bassett and I had going forward, was being able to underscore all of the decisions we make, the statements we make when we hold schools accountable, to be able to lead in, because we value. And I think we were, I'm not saying we have to print everything, because I don't want everything printed, but having our vision, our values and our mission printed and reflected on everything all of the time, not just for the broader, but for us to remember what do we value, because values should communicate a common definition of school quality. I took a screenshot that I won't read, but because it was meaningful for the types of authorizing choice we have within our mission. And then just in my own mind, rewrote our mission, advance quality, choice, and innovation. That was a thought exercise.
All work together. All right.
All right. So, what I would like to share today, Member Cisneros and I did attend a session together that was focused on values-driven authorization. And that was one session of several that really spoke to me. And so I'm going to extend and kind of share some possibilities maybe based on some of what she has already shared. So one of the big ideas is that our values should drive the process. In a values, driven authorization, values drive the process. And questions that caused me to reflect, what do we value now, which this board has articulated in our strategic plan, and also what will we value in 5 years? So is there an element of this that lasts, that sticks? And the piece that I want to kind of explore with you for a moment is that, because we value, and then insert a decision. And as we sat together in that session, Member Cisneros and I both, we said, we've got them. What are our values? And we kind of quizzed ourselves to see how many of those we could list. Neither of us got the complete list, I don't think, but it was a moment for us to think of what it would take to get there, that we could really just have those values at the top of our mind. So a few thoughts, and directly tied to what we've already been talking about this morning. Because we value excellence, we are exploring third-party survey options. Those are directly related to what we're talking about today. Because we value trust, we are reworking the budget in a way that will better help us authorize and oversee good schools. Clear lines drawn between what we're talking about and our values, but see the difference of just saying it out loud, right? I love that. I really, it resonated with me as I was in that session. And then I'm going to share just this, and it's a piece. I bring poetry to the table a lot in these meetings, and I know that about myself. But because we value compassion and authenticity, I want to share a piece of poetry that I encountered at the NACSA conference. So this is Untitled by Beth Strano. There is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and have caused wounds. This space seeks to turn down the volume of the world outside and amplify voices that have to fight to be heard elsewhere. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our space together, and we will work on it side by side. Now, that poem is tied to the consideration of what a brave classroom community looks like, but I think that element of side by side can be a lot of things. Board members and staff, for one, schools and their authorizer, and then the more obvious students and teachers as we create these brave spaces together. So that's what I wanted to share from my NACSA experience. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to share as well. And thank you, Crystal, and all those who have shared. I loved being with staff and board members. It's just fun. They're really great people. They're funny. They're a little bit naughty when they're out on a trip like that, and they're not in a public meeting. And so that's also fun, just to get the kind of the real raw personalities of each individual. I have three little presentations that I want to highlight, just a couple things from two, and just one or two from two, and then a little bit more extensive from one, because I think it's something that we need to think about as an authorizer. The first is an A-game presentation that I was able to attend about how qualitative data can support renewal decisions. And of course, we don't have renewals, but I would say for us it would be evaluations or reviews. And I loved it because we did a lot of quantitative analysis first, and some of that led us all in a direction. But then when we got the qualitative data that went with the quantitative data, it absolutely took us in another direction because it contextualized that data. And so these are some things that qualitative data can provide that quantitative data cannot provide. Insight into people's lived experiences at the school or in school programming, consideration of differing perspectives rather than a flattening or averaging, which I thought was very interesting, showing the limitations of the quantitative data at times, allowing the voice of the school community to be valued, helping to answer the question, how is a school fulfilling its mission or the purpose for which it was authorized, to your point, Member Cisneros too, and bringing life to the school story and to other data. And I thought that was very valuable. I had an opportunity as well to meet in a NACSA membership session where there was a discussion of the state of authorizing. And I was interested to learn at that time that the trends that we are seeing in Utah are nationwide. Most authorizers have been stingier about the numbers of schools they're authorizing. They have seen some of their, over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, have seen some of their applications decline in quality and even a little bit in innovation. They're a little bit more standard. There was the sense that we all as authorizers need to make sure that we are supporting innovative the submission of innovative applications, even requesting and looking as well at making sure that our process is accessible to groups who aren't the first to submit an application, who may be marginalized a little bit or not have the direct experience that would allow them to submit the kind of application we might actually consider and approve. One of the things that came out of that session that I thought would be interesting for us to note is that all of the authorizers represented there noted that since COVID, and even by comparison to the larger data sample, the scores or outcomes of students receiving special education services had been dismally low. So to whatever extent every group has been hit hard, that group has been hit particularly hard. And so there was a general sense that as authorizers, we can actually do something about it by making sure that we emphasize in our application process and in the capacity interviews, ensuring that there is capacity for provision of special education services, and making sure that we're signaling the right thing to schools about those services. And I thought that was important, and that perhaps our evaluations going forward incorporate subgroups as part of that evaluation, so that it is not just that averaging and that leveling, that we say, what is this, how is this little group faring in your particular school? And then, Member Cisneros has her sickness with contracts. I have mine with legal issues. I think I was channeling you, Member Olson, as well. That comes from a father that's a lawyer, brothers and brothers-in-law that are lawyers, and a husband, right? I've been inundated with that, and I'm interested in that. So this was a presentation given by a lawyer who has been carefully following the public versus private, and how vouchers and how other kinds of direct or indirect public monies may go into charter schools or other public schools, and what the case law is kind of suggesting about the environment that we're living in now or maybe living in shortly. So a couple of items that came up in this. First of all, this lawyer pointed out that the publicness of charters is under scrutiny. And we are obviously inherently hybrid. We are typically in Utah, and well, always in Utah, maybe with one exception or two, we are both a public school and a 501c3 corporation. And that is the central element of charters, that they're not part of the local district. They're designed and run by another organization, a corporation, and they have a non-public board of trustees. And they're often treated as 501c3 organizations. And a lot of times this makes it difficult in operations, particularly at closure, because you're trying to meet the sort of compliance requirements and other and even procedures required of two different organizations that don't always speak to each other. And over the years, many arguments nationally have been floated about the privateness of charters. Even here at the USPE, I was in a meeting one time when it was suggested that charter schools might not be eligible, even though they were, of course, all getting it in our state, for federal funds because they were private, in the sense that they were run by nonprofit corporations that were not public. So in that, like a sort of narrow regard, they were, but on the other hand, they had been authorized to receive public funds. And so in a real sense, they were public, and the federal government was providing, for instance, special education funding. But there are sort of shifting sands, and one of the cases that was brought up was an Oklahoma case of 2022, so very recent, where the Attorney General issued an opinion that the Oklahoma charter school law's prohibition against religious charter schools is unconstitutional. And in early 2023, the Oklahoma Archdiocese applied for a charter to operate a virtual school. And in June, the statewide virtual charter school board voted 3-2 that would be like the equivalent of our board, to approve the application by the Catholic Archdiocese of Oklahoma to establish this school. And it would be open to students across the state, K through 12, and it would be the first publicly funded, it will be the first publicly funded religious school in the nation. Within that regard,
Right, exactly true. Maine for a very long time has been sending public school students to private religious schools.
through a voucher,
through a voucher.
yeah,
But not, yeah, they're not.
more indirect than direct,
more indirect.
right. And so, some questions that were asked, and this is very timely for us because we have vouchers coming on board for the 24-25 school year. What happens if SCOTUS says that charters are private? At that point, everyone will have to follow that decision because right now it's kind of being decided state by state as the nuances of whether or not public monies can be used for this or that purpose or in a charter and so on. SCOTUS may defer to states to decide. States could pass their own legislation regarding civil rights and due process protections attached to money going to private schools that are charters or otherwise. If SCOTUS makes a decision, obviously states would all have to comply. And states may also, until a SCOTUS decision, decide not to fund private or religious charters. And as we look at that, there were questions that came up such as if public monies are allowed to fund a private charter school or a charter school that is religious in nature, or just a private school that is not, in fact, a charter school, will these private schools be held to fairness standards that derive from the Constitution? Because, as you know, for now, in any case, if that private schools are exempt from Title IX, and particularly to the extent that application of that title would, in fact, be inconsistent with their religious tenets, and private schools can also turn away LGBTQ students while still receiving public funding for accepting vouchers. So, authorizers, it was suggested by this lawyer, the authorizers in this environment would become uniquely important, particularly if it is not a national decision from the Supreme Court, but in fact, it's a state by state. And it may be that within the agreement, authorizers could require certain types of conduct for their authorized charter schools, assuming obviously that wasn't illegal to do in the state or in the nation. I mean, that's yet to be seen. But it was extremely interesting to hear the nuanced arguments about case law and precedent that has decided that within minimal amounts of money or within minimal amounts of federal funds for a particular individual in a school could still receive those funds and be considered private and not have to comply with federal law in certain instances. And at other times when that money is more sort of larger and more substantive going to the school, that to this point, there have been required standards that adhere to federal laws like Title I and others, or Title IX and others. So that is changing. I think that's the key point. That is changing, and that there has already now been case law setting a precedent in our nation that public monies can go to religious charter schools. So we'll need to see. If the states disagree, then usually the Supreme Court will hear it and make a decision, or sometimes refuse to and just let the states kind of have their own unique environment based on their own state law. So Utah, I think, will have to grapple with this in the near future, and it will definitely affect what kinds of schools we're able to authorize or not, whether or not we put in provisions within our agreements with charter schools, and whether or not we're allowed to continue to press for certain protections, or whether it is very, very flexible. So stay tuned, I guess, on that.
It's tricky, obviously, because our own U.S. Constitution says that any thing not in the Constitution, not directly prohibited by the Constitution, it becomes a state's right. And that's in our amendment. So individual, that's why we have differences among all of our states. But the Supreme Court can set precedent direction about how states should respond to that. So, at any rate, thank you all. You can tell we didn't just sit around. Folks we were working. We were in meetings and really working. And then even when we had lunch, it was, this is what I heard, this is what I heard, and a lot of sharing. So they were full working days. And then ice cream at the end. So, but the rest of the day was we really did spend time. We hope others of you will consider next October coming with us if you're able to. And I suspect if we can get a report as soon as possible, I don't think they've set the date or place yet, but if we, as soon as we know, then folks can potentially plan. Do you? Oh, great. I would love that if you know. I started to say it was Hawaii next year. It's not, but
Houston.
but I would love it if it was. I could take you to places to eat in Hawaii, so that would be good.
Ryan will plan.
Yeah, Michelle knows it too, right?
Well, he's got the
Yeah,
contacts.
I know some things, but I don't know all the things Michelle would have either. So I did bring many of the things it mentioned. We tried to split up among sessions so we could cover more than one area. But I also do have the A game, some of these A game materials. I'll pass them on because if we choose to look at what that measure what matters, my one push the things which I thought Vice Chair Phillips really was able to talk well about the qualitative data that we potentially could collect. I still have struggles with how they listed. They had two levels of qualitative. Really, one of those was quantitative data, but they like to call it that. And researchers would push back against how they listed it. But the most important part is that it really is good stuff to collect, and not the ones that Vice Chair Phillips mentioned. Those were all qualitative kinds of things, but. It's nice to know that we should look at both. You don't just look at numbers, but you have to look at a deeper story as we're collecting information. So that was their responsive authorizer reflection. I have a page about that. I'll just pass this on if we choose to. I like that quite a bit. We do know some are shocked that we have evergreen. We're an evergreen authorizer because they just aren't. Their whole mode almost a year ahead. We're letting schools know that we are deciding whether or not they will close. That's kind of their mode, is that policing of schools. And ours is we want to gather the same data, but to say, where are your deficits? How can we help to lift those? What can we do to support you better and to do that work? Though we do have our first little cohort of schools that we haven't had this in the past, and we will now, going into the future, have a group of completing their first 3 years that we now do review. That first cohort, I think in the next year, is it next year or the following year that we review that first cohort? Coming attractions, maybe the
End of this year.
end of this year. So we will have an opportunity to review, and we should talk about what is it that how will we manage that process? What is important to us? What are our values? What do we want to look at? What do we want to do to talk about? And I hope that that's also not just gotcha, but celebration of good things. And here's some areas where we can support you more. I mean, and it's also intended to say, if a school really just isn't working, for us to say, okay, this is not going to work going forward. But I hope we would know that way in advance. And so our purpose is different. But that's something we do need to be thinking about very soon to make sure that happens correctly. I also liked that what they pointed out about people and children and money. They said, why do people care so much about what we do, and why is the work we do so important? And it was because what do people really care about? Their children, and they care about their money. Two of the things they really care about, and we take care of other people's children. You know, in loco parentis laws are we stand in the place of parent. That's what is important. We have to do that. So so we care for other people's children, and we do care for other people's money. And so we should take that work very seriously about how we spend other people's money to do the good work for children. So why do people sometimes get upset? Well, because we work with two things really important to them. And so that just really struck home, and Ms. Stephenson talked about those two items as well. So it was a very nice conference. We worked really hard. There were a lot of work, things that we really liked, and I'm glad Mrs. Snero said sometimes we thought, not really. But sometimes that's the most helpful, because we say that's not what we're going to do, but we are going to do these things, and so it becomes really useful in helping us to move forward. So I want to share just one other little piece that I saw that just struck me. I thought was really nice, and I think I put the information here. One authorizer that uses a dashboard for schools. And it was just a clear, colorful dashboard. Green, you're doing well. Yellow, there's some room for improvement. Red, we need to really jump in and do some work here. Not to compare schools with each other, but for the school to have a clear picture and communication tool between the authorizer and the school to say, this is at least what we're perceiving. And you know it all along, because they can push back and say, hey, we don't think that's a red, and these are reasons why, and we can work on how to improve. Or we say, hey, we're seeing this kind of drop into the red, and you have to set those parameters, what they are. But very visual. I'm a visual learner, I suspect that's why. But very visual, you could see it clearly and then dig into detail below that visual indicator and say, in our communication, are we on the same page? Here's some reds. We should jump in when we're ever seeing reds, and what can we do to help to move that to a green? So that was, I thought, very striking. Anyway, rest of the materials here. And we are a little bit past time, but it's time to head for lunch. Thank you all who participated. We hope others will join with us in ensuing years. We know the dates. And we will adjourn for lunch, which is downstairs in room 73. We have some box lunches, which we so appreciate folks arranging for us so we can stay here in the building and complete our work. And we'll reassemble at 1 o'clock. We'll open our meeting again. So we are now adjourned until 1. It's not that we couldn't have lunch within the time period. It's that we can't stop talking to each other about things that are interesting to us. And so we have these great conversations at lunchtime too. So we apologize for not being right on time, but we are back in session of the Utah State Charter School Board on November 9th, and it is now 1:06 p.m. And we previewed a little bit this morning that we had guests coming today that we were so happy to have join us. The Promontory School of Expeditionary Learning are here, and Ms. Stephenson is going to lead for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Chair Bowles, are we able to have them come up to the table as well?
Absolutely.
Would you like them to introduce themselves before we get started?
You go ahead, how you'd like.
Promontory, if you'll just pull your microphone towards you, it'll turn red. Then if you would not mind introducing yourselves to our board.
My name is Michelle Flynn. I am the board chair.
Amber Edelman, and I am the interim director.
I'm Gwen Andrus, and I'm the instructional coach.
Thank you so much. Well, we're so honored to have Promontory School of Expeditionary Learning here today, and I'm very excited to be able to share this spotlight with our board about some great things that are happening at this school, as well as some really positive things that have happened with our school and authorizer relationship, and hoping that that can set our tone moving forward and what we are hoping to achieve with all of the schools that we authorize. So for some quick background, Promontory School of Expeditionary Learning is located up in Perry, Utah. It's that small little town if you're up getting fresh peaches. There's the Fresh Fruit Highway, but it's a beautiful, beautiful school, as you can see from our picture here. The school serves students in kindergarten through 8th grade. They have a max enrollment of 500 and have stayed fairly consistent, around 90% enrolled over the last many, many years. So a great school that people are excited about. And this school did open in the 2012-2013 school year and has continued to progress over time. I was mentioning to board member Spiker that it was so fun to hear her thought this morning about expeditionary learning and see the journals that she would take on her expeditions. Promontory School of Expeditionary Learning is an expeditionary learning school as well, just like their name says. So you can see some pictures here of students out on those expeditions, and it's very fun to visit this school and get to hear about the field work that different students are engaged in. Their mission says that they provide a rich educational environment that views learning as an expedition and uses the study of great thinkers to cultivate the value of excellence and the love of knowledge. Also from their website, they say that they use investigation and discovery to make connections to ideas and to the community. They empower children to embrace challenge, act with humanity, and become the great thinkers of the 21st century. I'm going to pause there for a minute and to share that this next slide is actually the school song being sung by students. And I'm so excited to share it with you. I think they come through pretty clearly, but if not, there's a key phrase that I want you to listen for, which is "We are crew." And then I'll talk next about what exactly that means and why this is important at Promontory School of Expeditionary Learning. So much fun. And it was fun to just be in the auditorium there with all the students singing. And so I want to talk about this concept that we are crew. That's one of the foundational credos of expeditionary learning, where they say we are crew, not passengers. And that metaphor refers to a group in a boat that's going on a long voyage. Thinking of our school years and multiple school years, that can be a very long voyage. And in that thought, what they're hoping to convey is that everyone is needed to pull at an oar, and no one sits by watching. And this is something you can feel in every aspect of Promontory School. At that same assembly, I was able to snap a quick picture. This is Libby and Emma, who are demonstrating the happy salmon, which is when you lock arms with someone and kind of fish flop your hands together to say good morning. And they shared that students were greeted by name every day when they come to Promontory, which is a really beautiful concept. You might be wondering why I was up at Promontory for this specific assembly. And the reason there is that they actually just completed an expansion to their building where they were able to add some music rooms and some movement space and some beautiful state-of-the-art special education classrooms, and it was just a wonderful time to be together and to celebrate that ribbon cutting and having that space completed. One of the walls that got taken out to make room for this expansion had this beautiful mural of an eagle, a falcon, peregrine falcon. Thank you. And so they were able to preserve that in a picture, and now this is going to proudly hang on the hallway of the new expansion. This was something that was created by students, and many years ago. Again, they opened in 2012, and so it's been fun to see how they've grown and changed over time. The other thing that I loved at that assembly and that public time together to celebrate their expansion was that they had individuals come and speak from the very first founding board members to students who had gone to school there, graduated, and now have come back and work at the school, other parents, and it was so exciting to hear their thoughts about what's going great at Promontory and what they've what they've loved about it. So I pulled together a collection of little quotes that I took away from that time together that I just wanted to share here as well. Over and over, we heard the phrase, my Promontory family, and to have a school that feels like family is such a valuable thing in a community. Someone told a story about there were some students who were classmates. They didn't really know each other. They went off to college years later. And remember, this school ends at 8th grade, so at least 4 years have passed. And as they were getting unpacked and moving into their dorm room, they saw someone and said, oh, it's my Promontory family. And they recognized each other from those years they had spent going to school there, doing those expeditions together. And so even moving into a college dorm where they didn't know anyone, they automatically had a friend from their Promontory space. I loved this one. Someone talked about how they learned to be a productive member of society and how to take care of the planet, not just about society and the planet. So actually taking that stewardship and that ownership of the society that they're members of, as well as the wonderful planet that we live on. This person had said, with my students, with my friendships, it's just the best place to be. So again, such a positive time. Someone who came back and was becoming an educator said that their experience there at Promontory inspired them to go into education. We also heard statements about how they felt confident about their future because of the things that they had learned and taking part in that crew and really learning how to work together and not just sit on the sidelines, but to actually get involved and participate. This one I loved. It's hard to have a bad day here. And then finally, one of the board members was able to share that their favorite part of being a board member is getting to hear student-proposed projects, which, like this picture of the Peregrine Falcon, as well as multiple other projects that are going on at the school, those are things that the students create and that they come and present to the board on. And it was just exciting to hear how they have learned and grown over time. So hopefully you can see here that there is so much passion for this school. This is a community that is thriving and loves the school that they have. And as I was introducing this spotlight, I had said that we'd be talking about the great things happening at the school, as well as some positives in our school and authorizer relationship. I would hope that in all of our communities, students and parents feel this way about their schools. But how do we then develop that as an authorizer with the schools that we oversee? And so I wanted to share a little bit of a personal moment. I hope that's okay. Where I was brand new on staff to the State Charter School Board. And one of the tasks that I had as a brand new support person was to reach out to schools and to go on school visits. This is like 4.5 years ago. This is quite a while. And so I sent out an email and thought, oh, people are going to be so excited to have me come visit. Surprisingly, they weren't all jumping at that. But I did get an email back from a brand new director who said, I'm brand new here. We also have a brand new board chair. Please come up. We would love to talk. And so I got in my state car and drove up to Perry, Utah. I didn't know where it was until that day. And got there and was able to meet with Director Jennifer Blaine and Board Chair Amber Edelman. And we were able to start that conversation of, we're all new, let's learn this together. How do we best support a school? How do we interact as an authorizer and a school? And what kind of positives, what do we want to have in this relationship? And it was a very fun, productive meeting. I think we all felt really good coming out of there, and that we had plans about how we were going to interact and what we could do to support one another in those roles. And so 4 years go by, and during that time, we were able to check in every once in a while. The director, we would email about things. She would come to directors' meetings. So again, we had just a regular kind of relationship at that point, but we always had those checkpoints. Unbeknownst to me, some of the things that we had discussed at that very first meeting were now happening at the school. Some of the processes that we suggested setting up, ways that the director and the board chair could communicate positively with each other, ways that the board could support their director and that the director could then report to the board. And all of these things were happening at the school. And so the school was continuing to have great success and moving along well. And I think it would have continued that way indefinitely. Unfortunately, that Labor Day weekend, it was heading into the weekend that Friday night, and I saw a message on my phone from board chair Amber Edelman, and said that she needed to talk. And so I thought this was a little out of the blue, a little out of the ordinary. And, of course, I'm there for her. I'm happy to talk. We have a relationship of, an authorizer in a school. And calling her back, we learned about the tragic accident that Director Jennifer Blaine was in. And at that point, it was really sad. And at first, as an authorizer, of course, as a friend, I wanted to cry and to grieve, because that was a huge loss. But then I also saw that as the authorizer, we have this opportunity where the last thing that they need to do is worry about, compliance and reports. And of course, those things are important, but they needed that time to be together as a community. And so I was able to say, we will be there Monday morning, first thing. And from the back end, we were able to then coordinate with our wonderful contacts at the associations, both associations, contacts of different charter management companies, people here at USBE, and make sure that we had a robust team to go in on that Monday morning and to be there for that school. And walking in Monday, of course, that was heartbreaking and sad, but to see that both their own community came together, as well as our community of, people who are deep into charter work, were able to come together and support this school. And the thing that I loved even, most about that, with all these folks coming in, was we could reassure them that we will be here as long as you need. We don't want to step on your toes. We don't want to take over things, but we're here for you so that you can do what you need to do as your school community. I also very much appreciated, since we were able to work with both associations and with charter management companies and with the USBE, that we had not only one crisis team, but 3 that were ready to go. And so if this, persisted longer and we needed additional folks, if we needed reinforcements, we had that all lined up and ready to go. And it was such a powerful thing to feel that our charter community come together and to really help one another. And over time, we were able to kind of scaffold back to our teaching language, so that Promontory is still continuing to run. And now they have that time and that capacity to worry about reports and compliance and all of those pieces of being a public school, while also having had that time to pull together and to begin healing from that loss. And so I pulled this out. It had been a few weeks at that point, and I had gotten an email from Amber Edelman, who again was the board chair, is now our interim director there. And I just thought it was so sweet and what I hope we can truly accomplish with all the schools in our portfolio. She says, I've been sitting here going over the annual reporting calendar, trying to wrap my head around the information. I loved she gave Jennifer Blaine that shout out. I'm starting to learn that Jennifer was quite ahead in turning things in. And then she says, thanks again for your help. I truly feel like I have an old friend here for me again. And what a wonderful thing if we can start off and have those strong relationships. If, then we back off and let the school do their thing. These schools are great. They have those capable, smart people who are passionate about the work they do. But then when they need that help, that we can feel like we're those old friends that they can turn to, who can help them both in the good times and in the hard times. And so with that, I'll wrap up here. One other thought that I just thought was so beautiful and just really, I think, closes this all nicely is, as I mentioned, Director Blaine and Chair Edelman, from our initial visits, we had talked about how should board chairs and directors interact with each other. And we talked about needing to keep each other informed appropriately of what's going on in the school. And the way that they found to do that was through a notebook that Jennifer Blaine would take notes in and then was able to share that with Amber. And it was really great because we had those notes for 4 years of what's been going on, what she was working on, things that were happening, and just really being able to not miss a beat with how to care for the school. I did want to end with her last note in the notebook. And we don't know if she had attended a webinar or what, maybe it was something she had read online. But I loved this quote. She said, "We don't need rescuing. We're having the time of our lives." That was the last note that she left in that notebook. And I think leaves that really beautiful legacy. I think applying this then to authorizing, our schools don't need rescuing. We have great people in place. We have schools that are serving their communities and that are doing the work that you have authorized them to do. They're having the time of their lives. They are getting to spend time with kids and with their teachers and all those wonderful things that make school a magical place to be. And so with that, they just need our support. They need us to be there for them, to be those old friends that when times are good or when times are hard, that they know they can reach out to and get the support that they need.
Well done. Thank you for that nice report. I don't know if any of you want to say anything today, but I do know we all would like, traditionally we like to have a nice picture with you, if you wouldn't mind. And if there's anything you'd like to say, I want to pause there. If you say we're good, we'd love to come and have a picture with you.
We'd love to take a picture with you.
Let's do it. Let's have a picture. Shall we? Come on board. Let's go have a picture with them. If someone has their phone and can do that for us.
I can take that.
Oh, Marie, we want you in it. Yes, you're not. She's not.
Gina will take it. Thank you. Where do you want to be, Cheryl?
Yeah. Come on. We'll get it all.
Where do they want it? Should we do the hallway?
Let's do the hall and get closer. I've always hated this stringy thing here.
We've done it back here before, but it's always so messy.
You think? Yeah.
Hey, because they'll be out for 10 more minutes talking. That's what we like doing the best.
A story.
It is. Did they tell you about that? You knew about it, right? The executive director, I think.
Oh my gosh, no. Well, even today I was like, I'm feeling like I just need to be snuggled. So that's what this was like.
All are because it's November.
I know.
We're all like in sweaters and hoodies, and we're like, no, it's too early. We can't have snow yet. I'm just not
Oh
ready.
my
I
gosh.
just can't do it.
It's, I know. It's coming. But it's, I heard we're going to have winter like last year too. I know. But
Snow here the year before, and then it was the next year.
then it was
Then
even.
we had big snow here again.
Somebody say Ollie Ollie in free for that group.
Yeah, that's where I was. We met. We were, yeah, I was there last year, and Jennifer actually spoke in my class. So I don't know. Just hope that our legacy.
Come on. There we go.
I was just mentioning, I was at your 8th grade bridging last year. Oh, you were? And I remember just like, I was crying and, I'm proud, my emotions give me power. But I remember just being so moved by what was happening in the all I saw was face, and you all know.
Unbelievable. Nothing, well, it could be this tragedy, but
Is that
They have a winning record in education. They're 5 years. Isn't there winning our division? Pretty bad. Yeah. No, not
Might
yet.
be there, but not visibly.
I couldn't see it on the camera.
On. There we go.
Oh, that's funny.
Is she still out in the hall?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and continue.
So like on the 4th, just go, Brian. It's really hard. to
Here we go.
No, I would love
Welcome, welcome. Here we go. All right. Let's continue. I tell you, the best part of our meetings is being able to see each other and talk, and we love doing that. So that's where we are. So now we can encourage. See, if we have opportunities, we can say to Dr. Kramer, here's a place, a school you should visit,
yes.
and up to Promontory School. It's right on the transition between Weber County and Box Elder counties in our state. You already heard all the best produce stands are there, especially seasonally if you go there. Maddox Restaurant, you should take time to eat at. And west of them is a huge bird refuge, as well as the word promontory is important in our state because that's where the meeting of the rails was. So the Golden Spike, right? So from every May, there's a big reenactment. So you can think about that in May, going to the reenactment of the meeting of the rails. And we'll excuse member Spiker, who has an important event.
My daughter is 16 today, so we're going to get her driver's license. So
Yeah.
stay off the road, from like 4 o'clock. No, just kidding. She's in a good place.
We love it.
Thank you all for what you do, and I'm excited for our meeting in December.
Thank you. Thanks. See you. All right. Our next information item, and that was a very nice one and really a very nice spotlight. Thank you. Is a new school application, new satellite, large expansion process that we will really do in January, but now's the time to start preparing and thinking about it. And so Ms. Stephenson will talk that through. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Bowles. Yes, so we're going to just review the process one more time. I know you get this every year. You probably could give this presentation, to be honest. But as we were going through and talking about, what's most important to point out here, I think ultimately the takeaway is how robust the process is and how many opportunities for feedback and success that the applicants have. And so recognizing that, then when it's time to make those decisions, you can recognize everything that's gone into that to help them be successful. So for our group that we will hear from in January, these are the folks that are hoping to create brand new charter schools in the state of Utah. And as a reminder, there are 2 applications that are coming your way, and we will be sending that the copies of those applications to you that week of Thanksgiving. Not that you have to read it during Thanksgiving, but if there's a lull and you want to, you could certainly start then. But you will have from the end of November until that 3rd week of January when we meet again to be able to review those and write down any questions that you have. The very first thing they do is they get an introduction into public schools, public charter schools. And so they watch that, and then they have that personalized assignment. And that was something new this year that we introduced, where they need to put together a governing board at that point, or at least a few interested members. They need to email the support team a list of 10 questions at a minimum that they have right off the bat after they've watched that 8-minute video about being a public charter school, as well as their why. So we can check, why do you want to be a charter school? And then from that point on, after they've had that one-on-one meeting with the support team, which occurs anytime between November and May, then they have that direct access to the support team, that's Lisa and myself, to meet one-on-one and go over any questions they have, to have us read over things, to talk through things they may or may not understand about the process. As you know, these groups submitted a proposal that was at the end of June, and that was read by you as well as staff and some of our friends here at USBE as well. They came and they presented to you at our August board meeting. They had those 10-minute presentation videos. We shared some highlights, and then they had their first capacity interview with you. You were able to then discuss what was occurring and how you felt about those proposals. And the 2 that we will be hearing from in January were schools that you as a board invited to submit a full application. You were intrigued enough to want to know more. With that, again, they did receive that vote. Those options at that meeting are to either say we're not interested, we're fully interested, or we're interested, but, and bring up some concerns or some questions. Both of the groups that are coming in January fell into that middle category. You were interested, but they had some things they needed to work out that they should be addressing during this time that they've had to work on those full applications. As a reminder on that application, it's limited to 100 pages, but then we do allow for appendices and budget worksheets and a table of contents. So as you are approaching from November till January, you may want to create a small reading schedule for yourself to make sure you're able to get through that material in a great amount of time. We will also make sure that while you have those applications, that staff also is reviewing and providing feedback, and we will again engage with some of our team members here at the State Board of Education to also provide feedback. All of the groups were invited and attended, so we can check that it's done. The post-proposal boot camp in late August. We required that each of the applicants had at least 3 board members attend. That was an in-person meeting, and then they were introduced to the various departments of USBE and the important people in those departments that they may want to reach out to if they have a question. So they have both contacts at the State Charter School Board as well as at the State Board of Education in every department, so that they know who to contact if they have questions leading to a successful application. Also, with our partnership that we have with the charter associations, they are able to attend pre-operational workshops. They cover a variety of topics. Some of them are establishing a governing board, how to create a budget, contracting and proposal law. They have a general Q&A session to make sure that the applicants feel good. They start getting training on open public meetings. So those have been happening and will continue to happen for those groups that are hoping to be approved in January. So when you see them, we will again provide some highlights, some facts about the school. We'll talk about strengths as well as areas that we could see needing some possible support. And then you will have that opportunity to have that second capacity interview with them. As a reminder, this one we typically allow 60 to 70 minutes for, so it's a little bit longer than what they had in August. So you have that time to really get your questions answered and making sure that if you choose to authorize this school, that it's a group you feel is hungry and capable and smart, all those things we talked about from NACSA. And that would be the outcome then of that January meeting, and then we would continue to work with them. We now have this year the large expansion and new satellite application process. As you know, this has undergone some change over the past year as well. In August, we heard from those small expansions, and we were excited to have 10 approvals move forward. So that was a great success for the State Charter School Board. Under the updated board rule, the large expansion and new satellite process is smushed together. And so we'll be having all of those applicants coming in January as well. I do not yet have a number as to how many applications we have. Those are due November 17th, but I will let you know as soon as we have those, and then those applications will also come to you that same time with the new schools. It is not 100 pages though, so that one will be a little bit lighter reading with those schools. As a reminder, just what is the difference between a large expansion and a satellite? A large expansion is more than 50 students, and that number is in the process of changing up to 100, and that's still working its way through the USBE. A large expansion might also be something that necessitates a significant renovation. And it could also just be the addition of more than one grade level. So it can be any or all or any combination of those things. A satellite, on the other hand, is generally affiliated with an already operating school. They'll share the same governing board. They have a similar program of instruction, but receive a unique school number. So kind of a pick up and drop somewhere else. And that could be dropping a new satellite right next door. Or it could be across the state. So that is something to keep in mind about what an expansion and what a satellite are. Some of the things that are required to be in that application, they have to confirm that their request meets one of those definitions. They have to confirm that it has been heard in an open public meeting by their community, as well as providing an explanation of justified need. We then also have just a number of pieces that come directly from that board rule that they are asked to address and to provide either a narrative or to provide evidence or artifacts to go with that to show that they are in fact eligible for this request. Those different elements, as you can see there, they're showing that they're in compliance with the law, that they're in good standing, that they're a successful school, that they have the capacity to be able to provide staffing and services if they are to receive this increase, that there's nothing that's an unresolved corrective action, and that they've actually done a market analysis and made sure that this expansion or this satellite is something that is wanted and needed within their community. As they come to board meeting, you will also be receiving a presentation from us that talks about those facts as well as that eligibility piece. However, under the changes that occurred to that board rule, we will report on that, but it'll still be up to the State Charter School Board if that's something you would like to address with them and continue to talk about rather than being turned away at that point. We will also then you'll have the opportunity to ask questions of those boards, and if they bring their staff, typically they'll bring their director, and then there'll be time for that discussion and vote as well. Chair Bowles, I'll turn it back to you, and if there are questions, I'm happy to address those.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have questions you'd like to address with Ms. Stephenson? Anyone? All right. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair Bowles. Ms. Stephenson, I know that we're working the more streamlined process through the law and licensing and then Utah State Board of Education. Could you just give a quick update on where that process lies right now? For the large expansion satellite, because we already got the small one done.
Yes. That one I believe it's just the number change that we're waiting on. And I believe that it's gone to committee. I can double check that. And I think it's just waiting the full board approval.
Thank you. Thank you. Any additional questions, anyone? All right, so just a reminder that you'll be receiving that Thanksgiving week copies of the applications. It's our job to read them thoroughly, so we can ask any questions that are important to us, so we have a better understanding of what we potentially can approve on that day, and so we'll know what we're looking at. You'll also receive for those satellites and large expansions as well. So all three sets of applications. Reminder then, of course, that we are January 18th. Ms. Stephenson already said that is a little different in a week, the third week as opposed to second, when we might normally have met. Let's see, what else do I need to note to tell you? I think that's all, unless anyone had any other question, which I didn't see. Maybe to say, and our staff won't be giving us a recommendation relative to you should approve this school, you should not approve this school. It really is our responsibility to do that. And so they will give us feedback. We will be able to see feedback, consider that like we would any feedback around any of these schools, and then we will make, through our discussion, those decisions. Okay, I think that's all we need to say. We welcome in the room, just joined us as well, as Executive Director Van Tassel, who works tirelessly on behalf of charters in the state of Utah, and representing, of course, Executive Director from UAPCS, which does that whole organization works tirelessly. Sorry?
Kim might be online as well.
And we think possibly that Director Frank may be online. Okay. And I'll let in fact, I'm going to turn the time to Cindy at this point, because Cindy and Stephanie from our group are the legislative committee. This item is, of course, to consider. January is here tomorrow, and we will be at the Capitol very soon. So it's really good for us to start to have a little preview and to understand right now. So really, I'm going to turn to Vice Chair Phillips. I just wanted to make sure to recognize that Royce was here with us too.
And I so appreciate Royce Van Tassel being here. Kim Frank wanted to be here. She initially gave apologies for not being able to be here because she had contracted COVID and did not feel well, even though she had hoped she would feel well enough to join. Turns out she does feel well enough to join online, but decided that since I was in this meeting and she and I are both part of the Reports and Requirements Task Force, which is one of the initiatives that Mr. Van Tassel and Ms. Frank have been working on, along with others, legislators and USBE board members and staff, to try to reduce reports and requirements as a legislative initiative, which has been championed by Representative Susan Pulsifer. She felt that if she was well enough to attend anything, she ought to be a charter representative in there, since Mr. Van Tassel and I are both in here. So it was probably the better choice under the circumstances, but she apologizes. She'll be, and wanted to mention that she will be working on the reports and requirements, reducing those legislatively for all public schools, not just charters, and also continuing to try to fight for a little bit of an increase in something that is more ongoing and tied to the WPU related to charter-based funding. But I know Mr. Van Tassel has a wealth of information, and I just want to highlight one thing before asking him to give us the true legislative update and some training, I think, even, or some information that can help us as we kind of work to advocate for charters together. The first thing I want to say is it became clear to me about a handful of years ago that not only was it absolutely essential to work in tandem with the associations to get anything meaningfully done for charter schools, which often, by the way, was also a support to all public school students and districts, but also to work very hard in the interim. I mean, you know, it's not really far off to say that if it's not done by the time the legislative session starts, it's not going to get done. And so I guess you might say we've redoubled our we've doubled and really focused on our early efforts. I remember contacting Royce in about April and saying, when do you think it would be a good time to contact some of these legislators that wouldn't be so off-putting? Are they still exhausted, right? Because it's only April. And he's usually a good gauge of that. So one of the things that we've been working on with the associations, with the some representatives of the Board of Ed, not the entire Board of Ed at this point, they haven't taken a position, but just to make, with our leadership team, with stakeholders in the charter world, is a redlining of the charter section. And you'll recall this is 53G 5102 through 53G 5608. There are parts of it that have been updated all along, even as late as 2022, but some of it is very, very old and very outdated. And also, there is at least a group or a series of sort of statements and requirements or descriptions that have become very obsolete and that certainly don't support, I think, what charters need and also what our board needs to be kind of a premier authorizer. And for that matter, what other authorizers need. I mean, one of the things that the associations were very helpful on is ensuring that the language that was that guides or makes requirements of authorizers is very broad about all authorizers in the state, so that whatever concessions and support we might get as an authorizer is also given to all authorizers. So because I'm just assuming that the red line, which is now in the hands of both a legislator who wants to run it and a committee, is basically embargoed. But I do not think that it is inappropriate for me to outline some broad categories that this legislation may address, depending on how it ends up in its final form, because it's going to go through now a second and third tier of stakeholders, and they're going to be scrutinizing what we've done, and we're going to have an opportunity to speak to them about what we as a group have done, and to hope we can come to a consensus if there are questions about it. So some of the things that align with our strategic plan that we want to hope to change in statute include holding a charter school accountable for performance measures outlined within each agreement. You've seen that language already in our strategic plan. Looking at governance and financial health, of course, of the institution, those being the things that we really agree to give oversight to as part of our arrangement, our bilateral agreement with our charter schools, and that other authorizers do as well. Looking at broad education standards as performance measures beyond just academic. We've highlighted before things like attendance, graduation rates, and all kinds of other education measures or standards of performance that aren't necessarily, though they may be they may improve academic outcomes, they aren't necessarily themselves academic outcomes. An emphasis on accessibility and support in the application process, which we've talked about, how important that is, particularly for groups of individuals who may not have, have had the opportunity to be in a position to know how to put in a good application for their communities, but nevertheless could serve their communities well if we were to provide that support. And other authorizers were also to provide that support. An emphasis on the bilateral nature of the agreements between the authorizer and its authorized school. You'll also find that in the red line. Specific additions that ensure due process for a charter school that has been identified for because of specific deficiencies, identified for support or censure or what have you. But a very the effort was made, because this was something that came back from our stakeholders, that being brought before the board with the potential action of probation at this point, because warning has been relegated to an administrative action, that sometimes schools have felt like that's the first time they have an opportunity to respond, and that the decision may be, almost made at that point, which is something that we've been able to address in a very easy and light way, but yet effective way within the red line. an increase of in the responsibility of authorizers to encourage and support innovation, to even promote and solicit innovative ideas. This goes very much along with both our strategic plan and our new position. You'll recall that in code right now is an obligation on the part of particularly the State Charter School Board, but by implication other authorizers, to call for, to request specific types of charters. And among those now would be added those serving underserved or marginalized students, as well as those serving alternative or non-traditional students. Again, going very much along with our strategic plan. Numerous cleanup items. The associations were so helpful in this regard because they both have an eye for things that are obsolete and that are just not working well. And so its example is a reference to No Child Left Behind, for instance. But so much more substantive things have been recommended for deletion and or rewording. A focus appropriately on authorizers' oversight of governance, operational, and financial standards, and the performance measures in the charter agreement, but an elimination of or minimizing of those things that we might have been called out to monitor that are redundant with what the USBE's area departments or the USB as a whole provides monitoring and oversight for. A language that supports more flexibility for, don't be surprised, but mergers, VSIP, and even charters not identified by the USBE or their authorizers for school improvement. Just better, the language provides a better environment for the kind of flexibility that would lead to charter success and keep certain options open for parents and students in a healthy, well-performing school. With that, I'd like to say that we've been working on this red line because we want consensus. I referenced last meeting that we were called into the Administrative Rules Committee and asked what we were doing essentially to improve our relationships with schools, the charter climate in our state, and our relationship with the Utah State Board of Education even. And the great news is, because we've been working on this for so many months, really since the session ended, last session, we had very substantive things to offer in response to that question. So a big thanks and a big shout out to Royce and Van Tassel and Kim Frank for their tireless support and rereading. I think Royce and I sat down, just a couple of months ago for maybe 3 hours to go over every single word of the charter section and make sure that it was supportive of charters and good policy, not just supportive of charters, but good policy. And I appreciate Kim too, who's been on this from the beginning as well. So thank you, Chair. Appreciate that support that this board has given to this effort, and our staff as well.
Thank you so much. We know that the legislative session will open the week that we have our next board meeting in January, but just 2 days prior to that. But there are those who I know that Director Van Tassel will tell you he doesn't begin on that day. He's begun a year in advance, and so we welcome you and would love to have your thoughts and comments and help us to learn. Thanks.
Appreciate it. As always, good to be with you. A couple of items that I think a lot of charter schools are worried about, both those that exist today and ones that are coming. The charter school world in Utah, really around the country, grew up in many ways in an interest rate environment that is abnormal. It feels normal to us, but it's really not normal. The notion of a federal funds rate that is at or near, or if you're in Europe, below zero is absurd. And I think that there's a real risk that the ability to obtain financing for a building, I know Canyon Rim continues to face this, even though they've been around for some time. But it's a real challenge. And will that be the break? As you probably know, there is a pot of money that came out of HB 357 about 4 years ago. Its size grows annually. The Education Stabilization Account, they take ongoing money and treat them as if they're one time, so that when the economy softens, they don't have to make cuts. They can treat ongoing money as ongoing. And that means that the legislature is always looking for useful ways to spend those dollars. We are working with Representative Neil Walter, to take between $50 and $100 million of that and put it into a revolving loan fund to help charter schools with the financing. We have probably the healthiest charter school finance environment in the country. But the interest rate environment has changed. And there's probably some reason to say that there are very healthy smaller schools. We do really, really well financing schools 500 students or more. Smaller schools, that's a different place. And so we're working with folks from Lewis Young Robertson and Birmingham, Roundtable Funding, the Treasurer's Office, et cetera, to say, if we were to have this revolving loan fund, what are the right ways to deploy that? I mean, $100 million, $50 million, they both sound like big numbers. It's a couple of deals if you were to do an entire school. Nonetheless, they are going to be, this is something that they're going to look for over and over again. And meaning they, the legislature. So there's a possibility that it gets replenished again. And it is designed to be revolving. This isn't just free money, here, go build a building. It's designed to say, no, we just want to make sure that you're able to do this, that interest doesn't become the brake on that. So Representative Walter has this as one of his priority bills. Ledge Research is anxious to get directions, and so we're working, as I say, with the community to say what are the specific terms there, but feel very good about where that's heading. We've talked a little bit before. One of the other challenges that charter schools face, as the board chair down at Moab Charter School, I face this, transportation. You'll see some of this come out in the school safety recommendations. They are rightly concerned that one of the most vulnerable times for a school is pick up and drop off, and that's a big deal at charter schools. That is in some way, a legislatively created problem insofar as we have historically said that charter schools aren't eligible for transportation funds. So we bring a whole lot of cars to one place simultaneously. I don't expect that this will happen this year, but we have already initiated the conversation about, hey, maybe we should revisit that question of should charter schools be eligible for transportation funding. The state board considered a business case for that this year. It went about as far as I expected it that it would with the state board, which isn't a criticism of the state board. It's just a new conversation. We'll be having a similar conversation with the appropriations committees this year and saying, hey, it feels like a good time to be revisiting that. With there not being much in the way of new or really any increases in ongoing funding, as I say, I don't think that that is something that gets done this year, but it's a multi-year effort and one that we expect to go forward. I think one of the other big issues, you're going to hear a lot about this at the interim meeting next Wednesday. The Interim Education Committee has spent a lot of time, the state board, various stakeholders, around sensitive materials. It's not one that where we see problems break out at charter schools, but not maybe for the reasons that you think. I think we, as a community, have the exact same spectrum I know some really liberal, quote unquote, charter schools. I know some of the most conservative charter schools. And the self-selection means that you sort of know what values you're opting into. And so we don't see that conflict that the districts face. That doesn't mean, though, that we're not going to be affected by the choices that are going to be made in that legislation. The bill file, I don't think has been made public yet. There was some discussion at the October meeting about who would be able to file a complaint and say this is not appropriate. And one of the requirements at that time was somebody that lived in the boundaries of the school, which frankly makes sense if you are a district school. But under that scenario, Crystal could make a complaint about any charter school in the state because we don't have boundaries. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that's not the intent. One of the other sticking points I'll say is because there's some similar language around elected officials. It talks about elected officials in the area of the school. I'm not sure what that means, but I think it presents the same problem, again, because we don't have boundaries. There was a lot of discussion up in Davis County. Chair Bowles, you are familiar with a lot of that. And one of the questions that our friends in the districts raised, does that mean that any city council member, any mayor, anywhere in the county, in Davis County, could raise something at any, and you just have a variety of values that get represented. So we're going to have to address whatever comes out. I feel fairly confident that something is going to get through the legislature. I'm not certain what it will be, but we'll get a pretty good handle on maybe the third draft of it next Tuesday or Wednesday. I mean, formally, it'll be Wednesday. When they publish the draft is a little bit unclear. But sensitive materials is something that all of our schools, every LEA, has to confront. One of the things that's going to be in there will say I think the last number I saw was that if 4 schools determine something is, quote, objectively sensitive, you would have 4 charter schools, then it would have to be that book, for example, would have to be removed from every LEA, every school in the state. So again, we have to be aware of how that's going to play out. We'll continue to be active participants in those conversations. Those are sort of the maybe hot topics, if you will, that we are looking at. I know there's probably 110, 120 bill files that are out there. But those are sort of the current hot pieces that I would mention beyond what Cindy mentioned. It's easier for me to say Cindy and Brian. I'm sorry. It's terrible.
Thank you. We know that more will develop as we continue. Thank you so much. And we're all interested in these cases. And I keep wanting to hear someone reference Island Trees v. Pico that really talked about books in school libraries and said that individuals have choice in libraries and we shouldn't be excluding. We don't have to exclude some books, though they represent different ideas from a library. You do have to give choices in classrooms because kids are required that, but there are choices in libraries. So it's an interesting, interesting discussion, particularly when this has been discussed at the Supreme Court level as well in the past. So at any rate, we'll continue with that and know that as things develop, the 16th, I used to say they start to gear up by then, but these days, man, they just jump right in on that first day and we're rolling full speed. So I say that partially because oftentimes, because Vice Chair Phillips particularly, and Member Spiker, as well as our legislative committee on this board, spend time at the Capitol. Others of us will as well, but they particularly will be called upon to give testimony now and then. They may say, "We see you sitting there. Ms. Phillips, will you please respond to this? What does the charter school board think about that?" And though we haven't taken maybe a specific stand on that particular piece of language, we do have a strategic plan. We do have a set of values and a mission that we have voted to approve that guide us. So traditionally at this time of year, we also give our legislative committee the opportunity to, if they're in that meeting, being guided by those documents that we have agreed upon, that they may have to represent us. And we've often taken a motion, if this board would like to do so again today, we've approved a motion to allow them to represent us as they may need to at the moment, instead of saying we have no opinion or we don't care, because sometimes that's worse. And it's better to have a position. We do have positions. It's just maybe not on that line at that time, but we do relative to our guiding principles. So if this board would like to, I would be happy to entertain a motion to that end, if it's your will. Member Cisneros.
I would like to make a motion to authorize Vice Chair Phillips to make decisions on behalf of the State Charter School Board regarding the legislative session consistent with the state. Let me try that again. I would like to make a motion to authorize Vice Chair Phillips to make decisions on behalf of the State Charter School Board regarding the legislative session consistent with our approved strategic plan.
And that's a great motion. Would you be willing to use the term legislative committee in case it's Member Spiker there instead of Member Phillips? Could we say our legislative committee? Very likely
Yes.
will be Vice Chair Phillips.
I will amend my motion.
All right.
Would you like me to verbalize it or
Yeah.
just, okay.
We-
I will amend it to say we will authorize the legislative committee to make decisions on behalf of the State Charter School Board regarding the legislative session consistent with our approved strategic plan.
Awesome. Thank you. You've heard the motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
I would love to second that motion.
And a second from Member Smith. Thank you so much. Any discussion relative to that? They use that authorization very judiciously, but yeah.
I just wanted to give this board one example of how I used, I'm going to use Chair Bull's verbiage there, but how I used this judiciously last year when we were in support of transparency of policies, of decisions, of procedures and protocols, and kind of mimicking the timeline and the comments and so on that USBE committees use, and that the USBE board uses. So I had testified in support of that, and in the midst of all that, a substitute came forward that would have, had that bill passed, allowed one authorizer to approve a school that another authorizer was then compelled to take under its wing and monitor and have as its school. To which I testified that that was bad policy and we would not be in support. So for instance, imagine us authorizing a school and then telling Utah State that it now had a new school, right? I don't think that would have gone over very well. It certainly would have gone over for us either. It was just poor policy. So that did not go forward. But the point being that there are times when you might be there, you think it's pro forma, you just want to make sure people know you're engaged and that you care, and that if you're called up that you can talk about the priorities of our board. And there are other times when there's literally an unexpected crisis that suddenly looms. So I would greatly appreciate the legislative committee having that opportunity. And we, as I say, we work closely with our staff. I work closely with Brian if I have any questions, and then also now Stephanie coming in to learn the ropes and to be a voice, so that as I transition off the board at the end of the school year, she is well situated to step in with seamlessly and carry on the work with the associations and others on our behalf.
Thank you. Thank you for that example too. It does happen, and any of us, all of us, have been at the Capitol during the session and know how that works. And of course, that invitation continues to going forward that we do that. So we have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All right, motion to approve that legislative committee to authorize them to make decisions as they might need to. And Member Cisneros said it better, but I know we have it captured in the minutes, and so it'll be recorded correctly. Anyone with all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimously, we approve that moving forward and as we need to. We do not have a need for an executive session today, which is unusual for us in the last 2 or 3 months. So that's a nice thing. We don't have any need for that moving forward today. But I will entertain a motion in just a minute after I say, remember that in December, we will not have, just to reiterate, we will not have a regular board meeting in December, but we will have a retreat that we have an opportunity to just do other things that are not action item, not in Hawaii. It'll be just right here, but it won't be a regular board meeting where we'll be taking any action on items, just making plans looking forward, and particularly around the strategic plan, which Vice Chair Phillips is going to send us another copy of with the new language, and you should know what that is. There'll be opportunity to do that, as well as we already heard that we should know our favorite Christmas movies, even our non-favorite Christmas movies we should know. In December, we'll meet on our regularly scheduled time, which is the 14th, is that right, of December? Thank you, 14th. And then we will meet again in January, having read the applications for new schools, satellites, large expansions. We'll be ready on January 18th from that. And the only other thing I want to say is have a very happy Thanksgiving between now and when we meet again in December, and how thankful I am to be a member and count myself among all of you. How fortunate we are to serve children and schools in this state and to be together to do that. So I really appreciate all of you. So I'd be glad to entertain another motion if someone has one. Member Smith.
I would like to move to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn. And do we need a second? I always ask. And we don't need to vote. I just